All right, so we are now unmuted. Hopefully, everyone can hear. Hello, hello.
I can hear you.
Oh, did it sound like I just went out?
No?
Oh, interesting.
Is it your headphones again?
It might be. Are you hearing me clearly?
I'm still hearing you. You're fine.
So you're not popping out.
No,
right
I'm not popping in and out. No, nothing.
Okay, my headphones are.
You want to try mine?
One second. Sorry, guys. You guys can hear me, but I couldn't hear myself. Now I'm hearing myself. All right. Yeah. Might have to get a new cable.
Uh-oh.
Upgrade that cable there. Yeah, it just suddenly went all crackly and pop and
Just be careful. He may try to kill a kid.
What?
Deadpool 2?
Cable? Oh,
Huh?
cable.
No? No?
Okay. Yeah, we're here for looks like we got Jack and Mark in the chat. As of right now. Yeah, we're here for roundtable number 68. I remember as a kid, my dad had a 68 Camaro, so whenever I hear 68, that's always what I think about. Gotta love that. Okay, let us go ahead and yeah, we'll hit the intro and get going. Got a few things to talk about news-wise. Hopefully get into some emails as well, some discussions. Last time, all the discussion kind of precluded us. I had a discussion from the book club episode that we weren't able to get to last time due to, obviously, we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to get into that this time. And yeah, it's going to be some fun stuff. So let's go ahead and mute ourselves and hit the intro real quick.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the dark tower came.
We are quartet, one from many. The palaver begins.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's Magnum Opus, the Dark Tower series. See, every once in a while, it's gonna happen where you might mess something up. See, you put it in my head last time. Hashtag Peter is terrible. We'll start that right off the bat.
Ah, come on.
Right off the bat, we'll start it with that one. Yeah, Stephen King's Magnum Opus, Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
I'm Peter.
And yeah, we're here for, I guess I can change the slide over to show that we are indeed for Roundtable 68.
Wow, we got a hashtag Peter is terrible before you even introduced Peter.
Yeah, indeed.
Good Lord.
Indeed. Yeah, so I guess we have like our normal intro stuff. Let me get into that real quick and then we'll have a little bit to fill you in on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some things Twitter folks might be familiar with. So first of all, I want to warn you guys about spoilers. For the Dark Tower, primarily, pretty much everything is on the table for these roundtable discussions. So if you haven't, I don't want to say if you haven't finished everything, you can't listen. But I'd say at least the 7 primary books. Feel like that's really where people would potentially be most upset about spoilers. I don't know about like, oh, comic book number 2 said this, and I hadn't got to that yet. Those are pretty old, and I mean,
how many people actually read the comic books without reading the books?
Yeah, exactly. So the books are the most concerning, but we also tend to move a little bit around into other Stephen King stuff now. So there's some other things that might be on the table. I think Pet Sematary coming up here pretty soon might be one that will potentially be prone to maybe discussion. Mm-hmm. So just things like that. We try to keep things light. We don't go too in depth. But as Stephen King sees it, though, it's all about the journey and not the end, right? So hopefully it's not that big a deal. But just be warned, if you haven't finished the 7 primary books, the end of both the series itself and of particular characters, where they exit the journey and stuff like that, tends to come up quite a bit in our in our roundtables. So be warned if you're not there all the way at the last page of the 7th book, unlike Peter that stopped before.
Never gonna let me live that down, are you?
No, I thought about that this
Yeah.
week. I don't know why I was at work. For some reason, I was thinking about like, no, you know what it was actually? It was a little over a week ago. I was just kind of thinking about the approach of the tower and the calling out of names and stuff. So
Yeah.
I went and pulled up the Kindle and just read that portion.
Yeah.
And it just made me laugh because then I thought of you. I'm like, if I was Peter, I'd stop right here. And I actually did stop there because that's all I really wanted was like the calling of the names and stuff like that. And yeah, like that's like one of the like I posted on Twitter with some screen grabs and said like this is one of those scenes that gives me chills. Yeah. No matter what. Like I don't even need the full even there, just pulling it up completely out of context. I hadn't read a word of the series before. I just dove right into that moment and it still gave me chills. Like because sometimes it's like a movie, you'll be watching a movie or something and you'll hit the spot and it'll give you chills. But if you pull up that same scene on YouTube, it doesn't really, like, you got to be in the mood of the whole movie.
It's gotta have the build up to it. It's one of those things that has to build up to it. But that's one that does not need it.
No, yeah, that's that one. And I think the other one for me is when Roland speaks up against Blaine.
Oh yeah,
that one is pretty chills inducing.
Before the riddle contest, yeah.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Like those are
command me not.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Ooh, yeah,
yeah. And so I it was just like I said, that just entered my mind. So I posted that on there, and then it reminded me of your
blunder. Yeah. We'll call it what it is.
Yeah, which is still hilarious. Yeah, if anyone is newer and hasn't went back to the older programs,
I'll tell the story after we finish the intros because I as much as I'm kind of embarrassed by it, I still love reliving it.
But for me, like, it's weird because I didn't know you were one that doesn't read like the postscripts or even the like the pretext in some cases, like the intros and stuff. You tend to be one that maybe goes a little bit straight for the story, right? You find chapter 1. You don't go into like.
It stopped after I got introduced to Stephen King because all the ones before were like, I decided to write this novel one day when I was sitting in my bedroom thinking about bears, and it's like, I don't give a shit about this. Give me the goddamn story.
Oh yeah.
So I never read the before or after stuff because until I read Stephen King, I never encountered one that had any bearing on the story.
Yeah.
It was always like the author, like Stephen King has done a couple with his. I started this story. One day I was riding my bike, my motorcycle, and I thought of this, and I got home and I jotted down a couple things, and the next day I thought of this, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool now, but when I was younger, I mean, I didn't start Stephen King until I was in high school.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, it was just give me the fucking story. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about your life story, about how you wrote the book.
Yeah, and see,
I just want the story.
And see, I've always been that way. I think we're the same when it comes to movies too. Yeah. Like, I love nothing more than 5, 6, 7 hours of behind the scenes documentaries on a DVD. Yeah. Like, that's my favorite stuff in some cases. And yeah, I know you're one that doesn't really delve into this. So it's just a different mentality, which is, I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners are on one side or the other of that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no. So it's just funny
that's one of the reasons why you have 20 something copies of Terminator 2 is because they're always like, here, look, another 2 hours of bonus content. Ted's like, hello there.
Yeah, I mean there is that, but I think also at this point I'm just a completionist. Like if they put a new version out, even if it's just like a new cover with the same disc, I'm gonna buy it.
Terminator 2 with an additional 2 seconds of Arnold staring at the camera. It's just his eyes.
Yeah, we'll see. Because right now they're in the midst of doing a lot of 4K remasters on movies, and if they did a Terminator 4K, I'd be.
They haven't done one yet.
I know they did T2. I don't know about the original.
Oh, the original.
I don't know if it's been done 4K or not, but. Yeah, so sorry, Willie, that was a little bit of a tangent in our intros.
It's what we do here at Dark Tower Palaver is tangents.
Yeah, indeed. So next up, if you want to find the show, you can do that in a number of ways. If you're listening on YouTube or if you found us some random way, if you want to lock into the show, you can do that a number of ways. We're listed on iTunes, Stitcher, you can stream us. iTunes, you could subscribe and download and that kind of thing. And there's a ton of podcast services out there. If you're a podcast fan, you've probably found some of those. We'll be listed on those. If you haven't, I would suggest Podcast Addicts is the one that I personally use. There's a lot of good ones out there, but Podcast Addicts is the one that I use. If you're kind of newer into the podcasting realm, you download a podcatcher like that and you can subscribe to a number of shows, and every time there's a new episode, you just hit refresh and they'll show the new episodes.
You want to know a cool thing is that it has, at least on the Samsung Galaxy, it has a little thing from the pull down menu where you can just tap it to update.
Oh, yeah.
I never knew that until I think I was listening to your podcast a little while ago.
Yeah.
Your I completely
Palaver with Tad.
That's what it was. I knew it was something with Tad. I just could not remember. I should have remembered. I mean, you got it from here. But yeah, I that's what I do now. Is I just click that and hit. Oh, it's updating.
Yeah,
look at that.
Indeed. So those are the number of ways you can find us. If you do like the show, and if you could be so kind as to subscribe, rate, and review us on a number of places, but iTunes is the most beneficial. And I have a funny story about that actually. I was at work and I happened to open iTunes by accident. I think I pressed like one of the media buttons and I had like
because it's Macs at work, right?
Yeah, it's a Mac computer, but like I had like Google Play in one of my windows, and like here at home, if I push a button, it'll actually stop that music, right? But on a Mac, it opened iTunes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'll look it up, and it was like I saw some of the same reviews I generally see, which I still appreciate, but I'm like, man, we don't get a whole lot of reviews. And then I realized like. In the old days, they used to just show you the newest, but now they've changed it to where it shows like by like best. And I think it's because people, I think they might be able to vote if it's helpful or not. So it's rated by that. So I realized that. So I found the little setting. I changed over to new, and there's been a number of great reviews recently.
Oh, excellent!
So definitely appreciate that. I thought about reading them, but I get kind of bashful when it comes to that kind of stuff because a lot of people are saying a lot of nice things. But I do enjoy. I just feel weird about like reading them on air. But I do appreciate everyone that's been posting those. That does help. Those kind of things are the weird things that help with the algorithms with iTunes. And eventually, every once in a while, we've seen like ourselves featured on like the top in like the categories that we're in, and those things are based on the people that are listening and downloading, and as well as reviewing. Especially if you're like on a podcast service. I don't know if you have an iTunes account, you can review, but if you don't, it's a little bit tough. But those things we've seen a number of times where we've got into some of those realms and we've got new listeners, and that's always appreciated. We love to grow our quartet because I don't know.
What's better than talking to people about Dark Tower?
Yeah, indeed. So if you could do that, we would definitely appreciate that. Next up is the show notes at darktowerpalaver.com. That is where we'll have the articles that we talk about in the podcast during the podcast. So if you're listening on YouTube, you can see what Peter's seeing on the screen and that kind of thing. But if you want to see what we're seeing and you're listening through your headphones at work or driving or whatever, and you're on the normal podcast, you can go to darktowerpalaver.com. Hopefully not when you're driving, when you pull over or when you get home safely.
You get home.
You can look at like, hey, what picture are they talking about? Because I'm like, they're talking a lot about it. I can't visualize it. Pull up darktowerpalaver.com and you'll find it. Also, I grab bites from the articles sometimes. And, for instance, there was one time that there was a small little bit about Dark Tower, but there was a larger perspective of like, I can't remember what it was about.
It was the King universe with the coming movies.
Yeah.
Like talking about all the different adaptations, because this is before It came out. This is before Castle Rock came out.
Yeah.
It was back when Dark Tower was first like actually going forward. It's like, this is all the things that are coming to King, but you pulled out Nikolai Arcel's little bit that they gave for the article.
Yeah. So like if there's ever times that like you want to know maybe what the context of what I'm reading is, you can also find that on the show notes. You can find the link for the full article and go and check that out. So go ahead and check that out if you need any of those kind of things. Also, our questions for new listeners. If you want to engage with us as a new listener, you can find the questions on there that we kind of give you as guidelines. You don't have to answer them all, but they're ones that might give you an idea of, hey, what should I email if I'm going to email in?
Yeah.
They're on there. You'll see a thing that says for new listeners. So there is that. And if you are a new listener, you are part of the extended quartet now, whether you knew it or not. And as such, we want you guys to be part of the Palaver, and Peter can tell you the number of ways you can do that.
Easiest and fastest way to reach us is email, darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. If you want us to read it out on the air, then don't say anything. If you don't, if there's sometimes where you want to email us something private, we've had a couple people contact us about collaborating about Tains 2. Just make sure to put that in there because Tad will then pull it and get it into the emails for a roundtable episode instead of on a book club. We're on Facebook and Twitter. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And then Tad is on Twitter. It's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. So if you ever really want to interact with Tad, tweet him. Tweeter him.
Yeah, indeed. I'm the one that's generally on the Twitter.
Yeah.
We're both on Facebook, so just kind of if you want to aim something at one direction or the other. I've been
kind of pulling back from the Facebook a little bit simply because of like the announcements a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I want to avoid stuff like that. Me and Tad love having me with my head in the sand because then you get my genuine reaction here on the air. So I like doing that. Tad likes doing that. So that's how we're going to keep kind of doing it. With the TV show potentially moving forward, I really need to start pulling back a little bit from that news so that I don't see something get spoiled for me. But still, reach out to, the other fans are on the Facebook page as well, aside from just me and Tad. So then our shows are streamed on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Dark Tower Palaver. Roundtables are streamed and kept up. Book clubs are streamed, but they have to be taken. They don't stay up because of the copyright issues with the sound clips.
Yep, indeed.
And it's not all of the roundtables. Tad caught me this last time, and I've never said this before, but yeah, not all of the roundtables. We started using YouTube.
I don't remember where
year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember where we were at, like timeline wise of like what episode we were, but
going forward, that's where we're at for now.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, I before we even dive headlong into the whole thing we got with news and everything else that we have, I wanted to let you know. I started, and I posted this on Twitter as well. I decided to prep myself for the movie and made the old purchase of Pet Sematary.
Good
and I've been listening to that.
How is it?
Good. Yes,
he's a good narrator.
Yeah, he is. Now the only problem is, and I brought this up on Twitter.
Okay.
And I actually kind of talked to you about it just in a circular way, to where I wasn't really revealing my hand of what was going on. Is when you have a narrator that you know,
it's hard to not picture him.
Yeah, and now, dude,
and the movie coming out is someone different.
It's somebody completely different. Yeah. So literally, I'm picturing Dexter as Lewis.
Yeah.
It just works. I think he really would have done well in the role. I'm not saying that I'm mad that he's not. I'm just saying that having him read it, it's the dude would have fit in the role certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, who knows, you know what I mean? Will Patton performing Holly Gibney is not necessarily but
no.
He does have a Holly voice, but but I told you, I think on Twitter or when we were texting, and I posted this on Twitter too, with Will Patton though, I pretty much pictured him as Hodges in the Hodges trilogy.
Oh yeah.
They describe him being a little bit out of shape, so I just literally pictured Will Patton being out of shape because
just give him the Christian Bale treatment and he'll be fine.
Pretty much.
Oh, the story. What we were talking about in the intros with the ending. We told this a couple times. There was a huge mix-up on my part. Tad obviously was lending me the books. I think you were lending me the books, or did I not just? No, at that point I started buying them for myself.
Yeah.
So I bought book 7 when I bought book 6, and then I read it, and I stopped at the part where Roland does the name call, the roll call.
The end of the proper thing.
Right.
You have to get into the
epilogue
before you get to in the tower.
So all of that stuff I didn't read my first time through. I stopped and I was like, well, that's kind of a crappy ending. And Ted's like, yeah, you didn't like it? I was like, yeah, it just leaves it so open. And Ted's like, yeah, it kind of does. But what'd you think about it, resetting? And I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? He's like, the resetting and him going back. Hold on. What was the last thing you read? And I was like, he went into the tower. And he goes, and I go, that's it. That's where it stops. And he goes, no, go read more.
Yeah, go read the rest of it.
Yeah, but no, I just epilogues and the prologues and everything like that. I always just thought that they were the author's introduction and exit from the book.
Yeah,
just from past experiences. I almost said R.L. Stein. Stephen King was the first one that I ever read that actually did stuff that pertained to the book. He does the summaries for Dark Tower. It's hey, this is Wastelands. This is book 3
the
of
arguments.
the arguments. Yeah. This and this happened, where you could kind of pick up book 3 without really having to read 1 and 2 as much. There's stuff that you're gonna miss, obviously, but he gives you that previously on the Dark Tower series.
Yeah, it basically, it's kind of like previously on, where you won't have the full context of the previous episode maybe if you're watching a TV show, but you at least have enough of the plot points to at least carry on with it. You're just not going to have all the nitty-gritty detail. You didn't watch every second of the show.
Right.
So he basically gives you that ability, which is good, especially when a few episodes back we discovered that the widest publication of the first book didn't happen until after the second book.
Right, exactly.
So there was a number of people in that first generation that maybe would have read the second book first, and then would have got back to the first book later, because it was such a limited release for both the publications that had of the first book were limited for the first couple of runs, and it wasn't until it was a year or two after
it was when
the second book.
Wasn't it when he put it like an idiot? He even says it. He's like, I was an idiot, and I put it on the previously from this author on the sleeve of Pet Sematary.
No, that was one of the reprints. But even even with one of the
earlier,
what people
were pissed about is they're like, we can't get our hands on this book. What is this book? We can't get our hands on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I know that it was. I know that we pieced together the first huge release of the first book was like a year after, or 2 years after.
Right.
So yeah, that's which is an interesting thing, and yeah, I mean, obviously with the length between books, I suppose it would be a way to say it. With the distance between them in time, it makes total sense that you would want to do that because Dark Tower fans are following along. But I mean, in some cases, like you're talking about generational jumps, not like, like actual but like, you've got like a reader that would have been in grade school when one book came out, and he might be in high school when the next one came out, he may not know. He may just be a Stephen King fan and sees this newest book out and go, oh, cool, I'm going to buy it. It's a new Stephen King book because I've, grown to love him in high school or whatever. And they may not realize like, oh shit, this is part 3 of a series.
Well, the other thing is like, if you look at the original listings too, it wasn't necessarily always, The Dark Tower 3, The Wastelands. It was The Wastelands.
The Wastelands,
That's it.
And
So,
Mark in the chat says he didn't read the first book until he was done with 2, 3, and 4.
yeah, see?
So yeah, that's and I think like, and we've even talked about on here, there's times that like if the first book is tripping someone up in terms of stylistically with someone that you're trying to open to the tower, have them stop and jump to number 2, because I feel like that's one will pull them in, and they can always go back and read the first book later. As we know the ending, they probably will, and they're going to be able to have more of a grasp on Roland and maybe be able to get through some of the stylistic differences of the first book to the rest of them. So yeah, that's I don't know, I find that kind of stuff interesting. But yeah, I just wanted to at least tell you. And then the other thing too is, once another Pet Cemetery, I am going to start the tower again.
Are you?
Again, some of these things have been entering my mind where I'm like, Blaine, and like there's different aspects where I'm like, all right, it's time. And it's been a while.
It has.
Doing like starting, which I've been failing at, the reading through everything Stephen King, which I'm still going to do. Like I have the list, I just don't know that I'm going to be able to do it as chronologically and that kind of thing. But like, yeah, I'm going to jump into the tower and have that as just kind of like a filler thing. I'm in a spot where like a lot of the podcasts I listen to are just kind of like meh for me right now. So I'm more into the book stuff. So I don't know if that happens to you, but sometimes there's like podcasts take up all my time, and other times they're just like, they're the same podcast, but I'm just a little bit less like wanting to listen to them constantly. So I'll have an audio book and I just bounce back and forth.
Honestly, I've started getting out of podcasts a little bit. Like the only one that I'm really listening to regularly is yours.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I need a new episode. I was gonna record one last week, but I was like, my voice was like kind of like starting to get raspy with like the whatever. But I do have some ideas here pretty soon. The only thing that I'm like with the other show there that I'm like struggling with is not going overboard of Star Wars. I almost opened up and started another part.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. I mean, we know how much you love it.
Yeah, indeed. And I think either tonight or tomorrow. Because I can't remember. I think I've told you like all last year except for seeing Solo in theaters, I haven't watched.
Didn't watch them.
Anything. So I'm about to dive in and start headlong into them again. So
Sploosh.
Yes, indeed. So that's gonna be fun. So I'm sure that Star Wars is gonna come up again in the show.
You're gonna dive into them like Boba Fett did into the Sarlacc pit.
Too soon. Too soon. Jack says I often rotate between podcasts and audiobooks. Yeah, I feel like they're just such different things. Like they're so similar in some ways. I mean, you're listening to someone talk, whether it's like about a topic you like. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are even storytelling. But I think it's just so different. Like it's like an audiobook, like that's long form, right? Like, especially me, I tend to like, if something isn't like 10 hours,
it's your minimum.
And even that for me, that's in the realm where it's like 40% chance I'll get into a book that's, because I just want longer. Like 12 for me is about my spot where I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable buying a 12-hour book. Anything below that, like 10 is like where I stretch. I'll stretch a little bit to get down to 10. But if there's some, no matter how into it I am, if it's like an 8-hour book, I'm not doing it. Like that's a weird thing for me. But like, yeah, so for me, like the audiobooks, that's more like long form, and especially if it's like Stephen King and stuff, you're obviously hearing a great story. But yeah, I just tend to like bounce back and forth. And other times I like will be in the middle of a book and suddenly like the podcast bug will get me, and I'll be listening to nothing but podcasts, and then it'll be like a week or two before I circle back and finish a book. So
yeah, I don't know what it is about podcasts. Like it was really fun there for a while, but I don't know what it is. Like it just maybe like the context that's out there for me, the content, not context. I don't have anything really that I'm like, I gotta listen to this. I gotta listen to this every time it comes out. The only one I will say that I am addicted to like stick it straight into my veins if it comes out is a hardcore history.
Yeah.
Dude, God, I love that podcast.
But what is the saying? Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Shut the hell
like
up.
he only
Shut
put,
the hell
he
up.
only
I
put,
want more.
He only puts out 2 a year. Like
because
he's great. But like honestly, if he was doing a weekly podcast,
wouldn't be as good.
Yeah, I still think I would probably I'd probably phase out of where I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll bounce back to you and catch up with like 5 episodes at a time with you or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, there's something about the fact he only puts out a couple a year that works out. But
yeah, and I listen to a lot of like when I first got into podcasts and everything like that, I listened to a lot of like entertainment, like comedic groups almost.
Yeah.
And it just it doesn't do the same for me like it used to, where it's like, here, let us talk about current events while making fun of it. And it's like, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
For a while, but then it's just kind of like it's the same jokes getting recycled because the same shit happens different day. You know?
Yeah.
A politician got busted. Oh, let's make the same 5 jokes about it.
Yeah. And then looking back at the chat here, Mark says I should do a Back to the Future podcast for my podcast. I actually might, because I actually just watched the first 2 of those. Maybe
why are you snubbing 3?
I ran out of time. I started like I think like a late Saturday night, and then like Sunday I had some stuff going, but I had just enough time to watch 2, and I just haven't got back to 3. I will say 3 is like not as much my favorite, but I do enjoy watching it for what it is.
Yeah.
So maybe when I circle around and watch 3, I'll do a podcast on the trilogy there. That's a great one. I love that series. Okay, so. Oh, and then Mark also says he also likes to stand. It's like 40 hours. Yeah, that one. I love the long ones. And I feel like maybe that. I mean, the stand is one that I'm always gonna like read a lot.
Yeah.
But like I feel like the ones for King, like I love diving into a book like it or 11/22/63 that I know are going to be long, because I know it's giving me a lot of content that's going to last me a good while. And like the Dark Tower, I guess, is the same way. I guess I'm parsing that out, but even those books get into like a few of what would you say the last 4 books are probably in the 30-hour range.
I actually just pulled up my Audible because I was curious about the stand. The stand is 47 hours.
Yeah.
The Dark Tower, so book 7, is 28 hours.
Yeah, right around 30.
Wind Through the Keyhole is 10.
Yeah, that one's shorter.
11/22/63 is 30. Wolves of the Call 26. Wizard and Glass 28. Wastelands 18. Gunslinger 7. Drug of the 312.
Okay, so I guess I'll say I make an exception, of course, for the Dark Tower when it comes to the lengths. But
no, but those were books
but,
that you've read before.
Yeah.
It's new stuff that you haven't read that you're talking about there.
Yeah,
so
and like,
that's another one that I have not read for a while. That's why it's at the bottom of my list. Under the Dome.
Yeah, that one was
that's a lengthy one.
About 20 hours or so, right?
34.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I love those longer ones. But yeah, so that's I guess kind of where I'm at. I'm pretty far into Pet Sematary too.
Are you?
Yeah. Pet Sematary as well, because that makes me think of the crappy Edward Furlong sequel to the original movie. Are you aware of that?
I've heard of it. Never.
Yeah,
no.
I watched that one as a kid, I think more than the original, just for whatever reason. Maybe because of Edward Furlong and Terminator 2. But the more I'm like reading it now, I'm like, I guess I could see where they were just like, cool, we could make a sequel out of this. But at the same time, there's just like, why? Like,
what for?
what are you doing? Come on. I think I don't know if I'm a little over halfway, but things are getting heated.
Things are jumping off.
Yeah, I think I'm probably about 60% without looking at my Audible.
Yeah.
I'd say, judging with the chapters and stuff, I feel like I'm probably getting closer to like that not tail end, but yeah, getting closer to the where it gets heated, as it were. So let's jump on over to the news. Now this first one is actually going to be a couple stories, a couple articles, and this is basically a lawsuit against Stephen King. So the first thing we're going to cover is actually an article that came out March 28th, 2017. Now, I don't know if that date resonates with you at all.
March 17th?
March 28th, 2017. Toward the end of March.
Last year.
No, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Jesus.
That is when the trailer dropped for The Dark Tower.
Oh.
So we were busy. So when this article came up, it just kind of got put to the on the stack and over the last couple. And also there was part of me that honestly even thought like I'd rather wait for everything to get resolved here. But I'll read the article from 2017 that kind of gets us up to date because as of yesterday, the lawsuit has a resolution. So we'll dive into it real quick. And also, I guess you might be able to tell if you're watching on the YouTubes. I've updated kind of the way I format the slides a little bit, maybe be a little bit more visually engaging. Because I was thinking, I'm like, there's some pictures in some of these things. I'm like, you know what? I like to have the pictures on here, but like, you know, like normally I have a title slide. I'm like, but if I do a picture, it'd be the next slide, right? I'm like, wait a minute, what if I merge them and just have it all together? So,
why not both?
Yeah, exactly. So this first one is called Wanted, 500 Million, Stephen King's Dark Tower Gunslinger, quote, based on characters from the Rook comic series, new lawsuit claims. And the one that I grabbed, there's a number of them. I think TMZ was the original one that reported it. And there isn't a ton, but like I felt like the best one that I found digging through the archives of my emails, because I'm a email hoarder and don't delete anything. It was from the Daily Mail reporter. The Daily Mail, I'm sorry, and it's credited as the Daily Mail reporter. They don't apparently want their people to have names. They just put their name on the thing.
Daily Mail reporter here.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's weird. Why not just give the person credit? And it was again March 28th, 2017. This is the one that it felt like had a little more context, because like the TMZ one was like a couple sentences long. It was like super short, just gave you the very basics, but it didn't give you any like context or anything. So I grabbed this one. So some of the bites from this article, Stephen King is being sued over his Dark Tower series by a comic book creator of the Rook. According to TMZ, a lawsuit has been filed in which claims that King's main character, the gunslinger Roland Deschain, is based on the Rook's protagonist Reston Dane. Is the name of the character, what you can see on the screen here. The complaint alleges that both are, quote, time-traveling, monster-fighting, quasi-immortal, romantic adventure heroes. So that's kind of the thrust of the case. Both characters dress like cowboys, and both books have towers that are similar, it claims. According to legal documents seen by the website, the character of Reston Dane was featured in more than 5 million comics between 1977 and 1983. And King
had 5 million comics?
Yeah. Featured in more than 5.
That's a shit ton of comics. Holy hell.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Is it like
yeah, I guess
10 issues printed 100,
I don't know.
5 million. Good God.
Yeah, I actually think I glossed over that when I was originally putting this up, and I honestly think maybe my brain registered as 5 million people, or they sold 5 million copies.
5 million copies, but featured in 5 million comics. What the fuck?
Comics. Oh, now I don't know if maybe it's comic strips potentially too. Could be something like that, because now you're talking
weekly.
Weekly things, potentially like 5 a week. I mean, you have some that are,
and then comic books itself, like what's here on the picture and everything.
Yeah. I'm not sure the total context of it. But yeah, between 1977 and 1983, and King has acknowledged that he read those stories. The horror writer's first book, the Dark Tower series, was published in 1982. Of course, we can. It was published in its entirety in 1982, but it was published in
segment was sold in 1977.
It was in the October 78 in the Men's Magazine,
but it was sold in 77.
And then we'll get into some of the details here. And then I had to take this from the TMZ article. I know the rest of this was from the Daily Mail. But they had a great thing at the end of theirs. TMZ, it says the lawsuit is impeccably timed. Teaser footage of the upcoming Dark Tower movie starring Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey was just revealed this week. So again, it's one of those things. This is not even the comic creator. This is a son or nephew. The comic creator is dead. So this is like family of, and it's like one of those things like. There's these happen all the time, and they always tend to follow along with big movies coming out.
There was one for after The Matrix came out, right?
Yeah.
Once the second or third one hit, someone came forward and said, "Hey, I had this idea 20 years ago."
Yeah, and they sued The Matrix, the Terminator, a bunch
anything that had machines taking over was like this was our idea originally.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So now I have some points I wanted to bring up between the articles here, and as the story goes, King started writing The Gunslinger in 1970, despite not showing up in the magazine until 1978. So that would predate this comic book by 7 years.
Right.
The Rook first appeared in 77, so unless King is lying about writing The Gunslinger in 1970, and if he wrote it closer to the publication date, that would be the only way this could be any kind of...
Right.
Yeah. 1970. So if most likely though, it's all bunk unless you're going to call Stephen King a liar, which of course I guess they would do if they're trying to get $500 million.
500 million. Good Lord.
Yeah. I don't know how they would have come up with that.
Is it just because like this series has been around for what, 5-6 decades now?
I don't know. Cause like, I don't even know if like, if you could calculate out the money that King's made on the series, I don't even know if that would come up to 500 million. That's a lot of money.
And then like the movie as well.
But he sells the rights to the movies for fairly cheap. I mean, but even if he was a normal writer, that like writers get paid 20 to 50 million usually for like selling a massive book. You know what I mean? In terms of like, this is one that we know is going to be a hit movie. I'll sell it to you to the studio for $20 million and then whatever. Like 500 million. That's a fucking absurd.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I guess if this comic sold 500, 5 billion copies in 2 years.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And I will say that there, more recently, there was a transcript of the deposition that Chris from Endworld sent us in the email. And I do have that I've been sitting on. Now, it's, I mean, if you don't know, like depositions are basically like as close to like court as possible. Basically you're questioning a witness and that will be used in court, so it's basically so it's super like litigious, it's super lawyerish, you know what I mean, in terms of like every
overruled.
Every little thing like King's lawyer will interject. But I read it when Chris originally sent it, but I wasn't even at all thinking, because I just got caught up into it. I wasn't thinking about the show, and I wasn't going to cover this right away. So I ended up reading through the whole thing, and I was just like, dude, there's some really cool stuff in there. So I'm going to go through and mine through that and find some interesting points for a future show, because there's some cool stuff in there. But some of it's just like, dude, they spent like the first like almost half of the other side basically establishing how much of a junkie King was. Allegedly to like try to like establish
make him like a thief.
Establish a case that he doesn't have, that his memory won't be trustworthy, basically. Jesus. And it was kind of like whatever. But there's a few things in there that are kind of cool. So that's but that's the context of where we're at. That was almost 2 years ago, only shy 20 something days, right? So which is insane to think about.
It's March already, dude.
Well, and that was 2 years ago. Right. I mean, I actually think as well, I was looking at my Facebook memories and I posted something, and I think I was keeping it coy because you're one of my Facebook friends, obviously. And I think we were trying to hide it from the show. But I think the Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey announcement was right around now of 2017. Like literally, like I think it was today or yesterday. One of my memories was like, and I didn't say it, but I said 2 major roles were cast. And I'm like, because remember we had those couple smaller roles that were cast first.
Yeah, we had the one that was like,
was it the guy that played Sayer, right?
Sayer, and then a girl that was supposed to be like his girlfriend or something like that. We're like, who the hell is this?
Yeah. So there was like those 2 were the first ones, but I said major, and I think again I didn't actually come out and say it because you're one of my friends, so like I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag before we podcasted. Most likely is what it was. So we're about 2 years removed from when we had which is kind of cool. Yeah. I think it actually was today. I think it was this morning. I was looking at it, and I was like, how fortuitous is it that we happen to be recording pretty much 2 years to the date from when we got the announcement for Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. Mark says on his level, the Tower of the movie doesn't exist. Okay, so here we are 2 years later, and to yesterday, today is the 2nd. Yesterday on the 1st, an article hit my email. Judge tosses copyright suit over Stephen King's The Dark Tower. Now this is going to be what I want to preface. I'll give the details here. Carolina Bellato from Law 360, published on March 1st, 2019. So this is like a law website.
Yeah.
There's going to be no link on the Facebook or on the show notes. This was behind a pretty like whatever paywall. Like it wasn't even just like you have to sign up for free to like get to the article. You had to sign up with a professional email.
Jesus.
yeah, I contacted a friend that has a lawyer brother, and they got it and just emailed me the PDF. And I don't want to post the PDF because if they're going that hard to keep it behind a paywall, I don't really want to be the one to
get in trouble
to post it.
Yeah.
Like, but I will of course read anything I want out of it. That's one thing, but I don't want to like post like a screen grab of the whole article on the show notes. But yeah, hopefully at some point some media folks will kind of get this and start like doing their take on it, because it's like legal at some point. This stuff's going to become like the whole all the court documents will become public, and then you'll have like every article. Anyone that wants to write on it will probably post things. This is just like cutting edge. Like this literally got dropped yesterday, or I think the article
got ruled yesterday.
I think it was. Or the article was yesterday, so I think it was probably ruled earlier in the week. So we're just really early. Like if this is a few weeks from now, we'll probably get some more articles on it. But this is just what is written on this law website, and it was pretty. Like this is like, it looks like one of those like websites like it's just for lawyers to like do research on. So it's kind of interesting though. So we'll start off here. It says a Florida federal judge on Friday dismissed a suit claiming Stephen King's The Dark Tower ripped off time-traveling comic book series The Rook, ruling that the protected elements of the two works are dissimilar and that no reasonable jury can conclude that King infringed on the comic's copyrights. U.S. District Judge Harvey Schlesinger granted a summary judgment in favor of King after finding that even though the two series feature adventure-seeking protagonists who don Western garb and engage in time travel, they are far more different in substance. Which I'm glad. I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, we have more, but just to pause, I'm glad because like I feel like. Even looking at some of these covers, I mean, you see like the robots and stuff where I'm like, okay, I could see like why, if you want to keep this as basic as possible, you may think whatever, because like this is like a cowboy dude that's fighting robots, he's like, kind of quote gunslinger type, right? Like now, like from what they're saying here, there's like time travel. I'm like, okay, I can see there's some similarities, but you have to like, it's one of those where you have to like blur your eyes really good to see that two people look alike. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's the thing with me there is like, if you go back and read that sentence again where it says time traveling cowboy garbed protagonist, it's like, okay, so if I make any kind of a show about someone dressed like a cowboy time traveling, I'm infringing on this. Like, I'm sorry, but now, wait a minute. I will. So Back to the Future infringes on this.
I will defend one aspect because I've done some. I've been doing some research into like copyright stuff. Getting into like like creating a short film and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things about a trademark is you can actually lose a trademark if you don't defend it. So if you and I find that might be the only thing like that I would at least give credit for these people for, because if you have a copyright and you do nothing to defend it as people rip it off, you will you'll lose it basically.
Yeah.
Like towards eventually at some point, if you go, hey, no, I have a copyright. They're like, no, you spent 10 years not protecting it.
What about examples A, B, C, D, E, F, and G over here?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that like that's what this person's do. This person's is just a cash grab, but I will say at least just to give some context, like, if someone has a copyright, sometimes these lawsuits are justified because they have to do it to show that they're very vigorously defending their trademarks,
their material.
Like for instance, like the big thing on the internet recently has been like a bunch of people doing a Kickstarter to remove the rat from the end of The Departed. Have you seen anything on this?
No.
Like there's the shot of like that building at the very end.
I know what you're talking about with the rat.
So apparently a bunch of people like it became like a freaking meme because nobody's ever complained about it that I've heard up until recently when this all started. But like so then it became a meme to where now suddenly everyone's saying like this rat ruins the movie and it's just like too on the nose, like all this bullshit. So they do this Kickstarter where the person's going to digitally remove it and then send discs to everyone that was part of the Kickstarter. And of course, Warner Brothers clamped down on it once it kind of went a little bit more viral and said, hey, no, you can't take our movie and change it and distribute it. That's
illegal.
Yeah, that's against the law. So, but that kind of thing, you have to do that. Otherwise, eventually you may lose
Eventually, if I come back, 2 years from now and decide to change The Departed and release it censored.
Yeah,
I don't know why you would ever do that with The Departed, but I could do that.
But
that's the establishing the precedence there. Well, you're not defending this trademark. Kind of thing is what you're talking about.
And there is a company here in Utah that
does that.
That edits movies.
That's one of the things. That's the reason why I use that example is because me and you have talked about that before.
Yeah,
about how they take other people's property, edit it to something that they didn't release.
Yeah,
and make money off of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Didn't they get shut down though?
Yeah, they've been sued more times than you can imagine. I don't think they're around. I think they're around now, but I think they're doing like a whole thing where like they're trying to create original content that's wholesome, I guess, is like they're whatever. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, it's like, and let's see here.
Because there's not enough out there to go watch.
Yeah, yeah. But one of the things I always think about when I think about that kind of stuff is like Spielberg stood his ground when they wanted to put Saving Private Ryan on network television in the early 2000s, 2004 or so. He said, yeah, you can, we'll sell it to you, ABC, NBC, whoever the hell it was, but you got to show it in its entirety, no editing, no nothing. Like, you got to show it as it is. The gore, the swearing, it's got to, it's there. What this movie's about is the brutality of war, the reality of it. Like, you're not going to PG it, and they actually did it, and it's one of the first times I think that something's been on network television that was like, basically rated R. I can't remember that. I think that was a rated R movie, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, it was.
Yeah, it's been a decade or more since I watched
it. The thing that I always go to first when someone's like, "Was that movie rated R?" I just go in my head and go, "Yeah, there were 3 fucks at least in that movie. Yep, rated R." Because the rule is PG-13 can have one.
Yeah, and it can't be related to sex.
Fucking yeah. In relation to. Relations.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like, so let me see here. So Jim from Rhode Island says, like Cy King needs to steal from anyone, which that's exactly my thing. Is it's just like when I first heard this, I'm like, it's that was my first impression. I'm like, you can't, like, I don't know. It's Stephen King. Maybe I'm biased, but like, there's just part of it's like, dude, for one, this is kind of like whatever.
And two, way too general is my problem.
Yeah, and then 2, it's like King is like so fucking creative. Like, do you really think that he needs to like go around and rip off comic books? And also, like, think about all the stories he's told. Like, if anyone wants to sue him, it should be Sergio Leone for the spaghetti western.
Like,
but like
he literally says it in the book that it's based off of him.
Yeah.
Like Eddie has that thought. Jake has that thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying not to laugh while you were talking about.
Yeah, Mark.
What Mark just said.
Stole the Simpsons movie idea too.
Dome Depot.
Yeah. I believe he even did something in the prologue for
did he?
The Dome, to where he actually wrote the dome coming down back in like the 70s or something, because the cow getting chopped in half.
Woodchuck.
Or woodchuck. I think it's a cow in the TV show or whatever.
Yeah, it's a cow in the TV show.
The woodchuck, like, he at least wrote that back in like the 70s or 80s, whatever. To where, like, I think he did that. There's part of me that's like, he's probably doing that because the Simpsons movie pretty much did what he's doing in this book. But yeah, that's indeed. Yeah. And then Cody just showed up. How's it going, Cody?
Hi, Cody.
So let me go on here. It says the judge said the plaintiff, which is the nephew of the now deceased comic book writer William B. Dubé, quote, analyzes the character at such a high level of abstraction and generality that it does not truly reflect the characters or their shared traits. So yeah, this is why I wanted to share, if nothing else, because one, it's a resolution of the case, but also some of the stuff the judge says here is great. And then the next bit here, quote, analyzing most adventure heroes with such a high level of abstraction would lead to a finding of infringement. Judge Schlesinger said, plaintiff ignores the true detail and context that makes each character unique in his own rights. Dubé's nephew, Benjamin Dubé, claimed that his suit launched in March 2017 that King's 8-book fantasy series, The Dark Tower, featured protagonist Roland Deschain, infringes on the copyright of The Rook, which also features a hero called Reston Dane. Since the character first appeared in Warren Publishing Co.'s horror comic book magazine in 1977, more than 5 million copies of the magazine that followed the character of The Rook have been published in 5 different languages, according to the suit. That still says that there's like 5 million.
Well, no, it says 5 million copies. So of the different magazines that have had this character in it, there have been 5 million copies sold. That's what it's saying. That makes more sense. How it sounded before was what there had been 5 million comics, individual, like.
But even this, there's some ambiguity. 5 million copies of the magazine that have followed the character Rook have been published in 5 different languages. So I feel like there's like a duality. Like, who knows? We're not a Rook podcast. We're not going to get into this. There's got to be someone out there that's covering this. I just have this belief in the internet that there's at least one person out there that's super obsessed with everything.
There's one person for everything.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, there has to be. We
got to find the guy for the Rook,
and then like start a podcast war.
Oh no, I'm not brave enough for politics.
I would never do such a thing anyway. I'm just making a funny there. Dubé claims that King was a super fan, quote, of William Dubé and admitted to copying his character in his memoir On Writing. Now, with that,
you've read that.
I have, and I had it on Audible this morning when I was again brushing up on, because this I've added to the notes this morning because it literally hit the email late last night. So I actually had On Writing on Audible, but I didn't have anything else with it. So I bought it on Kindle and did some searching. Nowhere in On Writing is the name Roland mentioned. Nowhere is Reston mentioned. Nowhere is Dubé mentioned. Nowhere is the gunslinger mentioned. Nowhere, he doesn't mention a lot of these things. Like he doesn't mention the Dark Tower. He, like, at least by name, like when I search Dark Tower, zero. Like it's
no results.
No, nothing. So where Dubé here is saying that he admitted to copying the character, nothing. Because how would he talk about that without saying Roland, gunslinger, or Reston Dane, or Dubé? Like there's no way. Like I try to find,
unless he does like some super vague, ambiguous comment. I based one of my longest series, 7 books it was, maybe 8 now, on a comic book character from the 70s. Unless he says something like that.
Yeah. It's
like, no way.
And I tried every keyword I could that might clue me into something that this guy's talking about, but I feel like he's just full of shit. And then since then, King has made more than $500 million off of Deshane character. So that's where the figure comes from. And the Dark Tower series, which he published between 1998 and 2004, according to the complaint. So that's interesting.
What? 98 and 2004?
Which he published. Oh yeah, why does it say that?
1982.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just copied straight from the article. I don't know. That must be a mistype.
We're such nerds for the Dark Tower that we're like finding problems with this lawsuit outside of the courtroom.
Yeah,
hire us.
Yeah,
I'll come down and testify.
But yeah, so that's I'm kind of baffled all of a sudden because I guess I didn't fully let that sink in. So King has made $500 million off of this series.
Damn.
How? Like I was just saying earlier, there's no way that he's made that kind of money off of this series.
Well, okay, so
comic book, maybe the comic book license, perhaps it would be a big.
The comic book license didn't come until after we were out of high school. This is 2004. It's talking straight just novels.
No, 2000. Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
It's just novels, isn't it? So it's 500 million from these novels alone.
That's insane. Like,
is there a website like the Box Office Mojo for books?
I don't think so. I doubt it.
Damn it.
Book Office Mojo. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just flabbergasted by that. Honestly, if you told me, I mean, I guess I'm not sure where King's wealth level is.
How much is Stephen King worth?
Yeah, I know that he, his wife more so, Tabitha, was behind a thing recently. I didn't cover it fully in this, but I could bring it up now, because they gave to a charity of some kind.
Oh, okay.
And it was mostly her behind it. It was her idea, her everything. And he and her got kind of pissy because everyone reported it as Stephen King and wife. They didn't even name her in the headlines.
Oh, God.
Stuff. So, yeah, and rightfully so, they got pissed because it's like, hey.
It's just like if it was the Bill Gates and Wife Foundation.
Yeah.
No, it's Bill Gates and Melinda.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is what it is. Like, for fuck's sake, she's as big as part of it as he is.
Yeah.
God damn, dude. That pisses me off. Like,
yeah.
Don't do that to Tabitha. I love Tabitha. I've never even seen a video or never heard her speak.
Yeah.
But just from how King talks about her, she's such a badass woman.
Yeah.
To put up with his shit, what he's done, and to read all of the shit that he's put out, yeah, she's a badass.
Yeah, indeed.
Simply put.
Indeed. Just tangent before going further. So reading the prologue, do you read the prologue too, or listen to the prologue of Pet Sematary?
Yeah. I do it now.
Okay.
I just
I didn't know if you skip maybe because the pre stuff a lot of times is not that important.
No, it's more, it's like, so, but I care about King.
So was it Joe that almost got hit?
Yeah.
It doesn't really clarify.
Yeah.
He doesn't
look at the timetable. Look at his boys and everything.
I didn't do all that. I was like driving and listening or something. And I was just like, I wonder if that was Joe or Owen. I wonder which, because like now, like
it was his firstborn, wasn't it?
Now both, he doesn't really say. It just says I was playing out with my son and like whatever. Like it's literally like the setup as Pet Sematary.
No, I thought it was, but it gives a year. And I just all I did was looked up Stephen King's kids.
That's what you would have had to have done. I was driving, so I couldn't do that. So there's just part of me.
I'm pretty sure it was Joe.
He's the older of the two.
It's the year he was teaching at the University of Maine.
Okay.
Which was when he was younger and he had his one son, which would have been Joe.
Yeah, he had the daughter too, right? His daughter.
It was Joe, Owen, and then the daughter.
No, I think the daughter's
Joe,
older
daughter,
or middle.
Owen. You're making me doubt myself now.
Yeah, but it was just one of those things again while I was driving. I was like, I wonder which kid that was that almost gauged it there.
I'm pretty sure it was. Oh, Hashtag Cat is terrible. Listen to him laugh.
Just dude, it's like digging a knife into your chest.
God.
You like physically recoiled. Oh man.
Oh, gauged it. Oh, is that going to be a term now for us?
I mean,
good God.
I guess I just coined it. Right?
Is it getting hit by any vehicle or just getting hit by a truck?
I think it's got to be a truck. Like there's one of the Chucky movies that somebody gets plastered by a pretty big truck.
He gets gauged.
Too soon.
Real fast before you continue, I got to point out what Mark said because before we get too far away from the article, Mark said it's BS. Otherwise, there would only be one vampire story and so on.
Yeah, that's
like
that's true.
When you go that high end, that high level,
yeah, exactly.
It's really hard to be like, oh, Lethal Weapon and Die Hard aren't the same movie.
Yeah, yeah. Indeed. And then it goes on here and says, but Judge Schlesinger said that while Roland Deschain and Reston Dane are both adventurers, they have very little else in common. Dane is a classic hero who seeks to do the right thing, while Deschain is a dark and brooding murderer who sacrifices others in his quest to reach Dark Tower, according to the judge.
Hey.
Both wear cowboy attire, engage in time travel, romantically interact with women, and fight nemeses that wear black. But the judge said that these things are hardly unique in an adventure hero genre.
Wait, bad guys wear black?
Yeah.
Hey, what color shirt are you wearing right now? Like dark
gray.
Dark gray?
I think gray.
It's a little bit more black.
Yeah, I think I think you're blind.
As for me over here, wearing my teal.
Yeah.
Nice and bright and colorful.
Yeah, indeed. And it says, let's see. It says the Rook is a light and at times comical, campy science fiction comic. This is a quote. The judge said, "Quote: The Rook character is a hero that reflects that lightness. He is a mile wide and an inch deep." Ouch. Roland is completely different. He is disturbed, introspective, and at times murderous. The Dark Tower, through Roland, explores some very dark themes. I just find that, if nothing else, interesting.
Yeah?
That, I mean, we know that, but it's just like to hear what level of judge was this guy?
Federal judge.
Federal judge. Yeah. Like to hear. I mean, because most likely this whole case has been outlining this. I'm sure King's lawyers is what they've been doing is showing like, here's Reston Dane, here's Roland Deschain, so
they're not the same.
But it's just I also find that somewhat funny that we're most likely talking about Jake and Susanna and Gabrielle. Like, think about some of the things that were in this court case. Like, I would love to watch this because I'm a fan, but it's like like, think about like the whole case being made by like the shit that we talk about on this podcast, like the terrible shit that happens in the series, like how much of a bastard Roland can be, like literally, like the reason the judge is saying this kind of stuff is because he heard it all through the case.
Good Lord.
And that just makes me laugh because I'm like, oh, to be a fly on the wall in some like trials. I mean,
I like the idea of the judge sitting down with a comic book in one hand and the Dark Tower in the other and going, looking left, looking right, looking left, looking right, going, these ain't the same people. My God.
Yeah.
Hi, O'Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. We got a good group in here. We got 10 right now.
It's been
10
a while
people.
since we've had this many people.
Yeah, indeed. And then it says Vincent Cox of Leopold Petrick and Smith PC, who represents King, said that the team is pleased with the court the court's thorough and well-reasoned decision. So yeah, that's the end of a 2-year saga here, as someone was trying to cash grab King. Basically, I think there's obviously some fundamental issues with the case, including like even here, like one of the few quotes we get from him is he says that King admitted to the ripoff and on writing. I mean, I didn't go scientifically like full on, but using the search function on Kindle to pretty much eliminate the fact that that's even possible. I don't know. Yeah,
you got to read what Mark just wrote.
I pictured Roland and this Joker stood in stood in court. Yeah, Exactly.
You think I'm him?
Yeah, and I think like some of the other stuff I did some research on. This is a modern character that guises himself as a gunslinger. He's not like an ancient anything like.
He's not descended from an ancient line of gunslingers.
No, he's like a scientist or whatever. I mean, look, he's got like a Tommy gun over his arm. There was another picture that I almost put on that was like him with somebody like down on like weeping in front of him as he's like shooting like his revolver one hand and machine gun in the other. Like, yeah, it's what it is. But yeah, this is certainly this is a cash grab. And like the TMZ article said, it was very coincidentally timed as the trailer was, and like right as the ramp up was happening for the movie to first happen. Right, like why didn't this person come out 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier? You know, Dark Tower existed in its entirety pretty much at that point.
Apparently, it made over 500 million in between 98 and 2004. So
yeah, that's still a weird number to me. But although I mean, who knows? Maybe like with like did he regain the like from one publisher and then sell to another publisher? That kind of thing could maybe be a good chunk of money.
He did change publishers, didn't he?
Yeah, I just don't know how that works with books. Like I know with movies, it pretty much always belongs to the studio that was behind it originally. I don't know with like writings, if like the writing reverts back to the author or he has the rights that he could then sell
to someone else to republish and re-release.
Yeah, okay. I don't know enough about the book industry to know. But yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Damn right, Jack. Jack said they have forgotten the faces of their fathers.
Yeah, indeed. But I'm glad that this took a while, obviously, but the court is generally slow moving, turtle pace a lot of times. I'm even surprised this is even kind of quick in some cases. 2 years, that's pretty low in some cases. Like, I don't know. Sometimes these could be 5 years and on. But it's good. I'm glad that King doesn't have to go through it. But yeah, I'm going to definitely, the only thing I'll put a little tag on this as we pretty much put this behind us altogether is I will come back to those depositions because there's some really cool stuff in there that I just need to go through and mine. It's pretty long, but like there's some stuff that we'll come back to. So remember this as we come back to it in the future.
Remember me.
Oh, all right. So next up is we've talked I think a little bit about Anthrax and Scott Ian, but this is just an article that was done and I thought it was kind of cool. That the thing here is Anthrax's Ian has a collection of 108 King novels or King books, reveals what the 20,000 Holy Grail is of King. Joe Daly from Louder on February 25th, 2019. And I guess I didn't necessarily go in order on this. I do apologize about that. I just realized I kind of cobbled it together and didn't reorder it as I usually do.
That's fine.
So this is let me start off here. It says Anthrax guitarist Scott Ian has made no secret of the fact that he's a pop culture nerd. U.S. rock titans Kiss, horror movies, and comic books have been part of his life since he was a kid, as has author Stephen King. Scott's love of the multi-zillion selling author behind It, The Shining, Carrie, and dozens of other novels knows no bounds. Not only have King's books inspired several Anthrax songs, Among the Living, in parentheses it says based on The Stand, A Skeleton in the Closet, inspired by the novella Apt Pupil, Lone Justice, and Breathing Lightning, both tributes to the Dark Tower series, but the guitarist has amassed a mind-boggling collection of rare King books. And then it gets into a Q&A basically, and this is one of the ones where they give us a full thing here, question and answer. So the question is, how did you get into Stephen King? The answer, I saw the movie Carrie when it first came out and went right out and bought the book. I loved it. I went back to the bookstore and asked, what else do you have by Stephen King? And they were like, nothing. You have to wait for his next book to come out.
Oh, damn.
So that's an interesting perspective on the King fandom, like getting into it through a movie, that leading you to the first book, which is nothing else exists. Like that'd be an interesting.
Oh damn!
That's an interesting experience, I suppose. And
that's like an OG fan right there.
Yeah.
Like, good lord.
And it was interesting when I read Carrie, and like looked into some of the basics on it. It was just like, holy shit, how quick! Like from the book being published to like that movie coming out was like damn quick.
Yeah, it was like a year.
Like I think nowadays. His stuff comes out about that quick in terms of book to adaptation, but like
it's because he like sells the stuff at the same time as writing the book. This was released and people are like, this would make a damn good movie.
Yeah, and I know that in some cases, I don't know about if King's ever done this, but I know that like for instance, Michael Crichton sold the Jurassic Park rights to Spielberg before the book was even published.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like you can do that where you're like, Yeah, I'm writing this book. Tom Clancy's done that.
Yeah, I just don't know I don't know that King does though necessarily.
I've never heard of King.
I mean, even during the course of this show, like how many of his newer books that have been written in the time that we've been doing this show, have we seen the book come out and then the news about signing it is shortly after? It's not like
It's not usually like
Fox signs for the unpublished Stephen King book that'll be coming out next year.
No, it doesn't do. It's never like that. Like The Outsider. I mean, we're getting a show for The Outsider here in.
We don't know yet. It's still in early development. It's with HBO.
HBO, that's right. I forgot it was with HBO.
Yeah,
I'm even more excited now.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And then the next question: what exactly do you collect? And he says first editions and some limited first editions and limited editions. He started putting out limited editions, I'm pretty sure, with Firestarter way back when. Firestarter came out through Viking at the time, but the limited that I have, there are two different ones. Came out through Fantasia Press. They put out special collector's editions through an arrangement with Viking Press. It's a limited 725 numbered and signed copies. He always puts out limited editions, and that's usually that he usually signs, and sometimes there'll be an illustration by an artist. And they're numbering and limited to a number of copies. And then these are the first or the true first editions. So that's kind of an interesting breakdown on how things work with this kind of stuff. And then he said the next question is, what would one of these puppies set you back? He said, and then his answer is the one I have, the 725 copy edition was $35 at the time, but probably got it but I probably got it for like $450 when I bought it around 87 or 88 because they were so rare. There's another Firestarter limited edition, and we've actually talked about this one on the show before.
Yeah.
That I don't have, that comes with an asbestos cover and all the other stuff with even fewer copies made. These days, you can't even find one because nobody who has one is selling it, and it would probably be somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000 range.
Holy shit!
Yeah. And then the question is posed to him: what's the holy grail for Stephen King nerds? And he says, "quote the plant." The plant is the holy grail. It's one of the rarest things he's ever released. The originals were these little rexographed chapbooks. He'd write a part of the story, and then at Christmas time, he'd rexograph off a couple hundred copies and send them to his Christmas card list. There were 6 installments, all done by hand by him and signed. Even if a copy comes up for sale, which it never does, you're talking somewhere around $20,000.
Holy shit!
So that would be like something like he's literally just made like something secretive for like just the people he knows, and it's a matter of like if anyone sold them. So those are like unpublished, obviously unknown. Yeah. Like that's interesting.
This is like if me and you were writers and I did something for you at Christmas.
Yeah, that's
holy shit.
Yeah, and he says it's the coolest thing to own because it's certainly one of the most personal. Which would be interesting too, because you're not talking about him publishing for the world; he's publishing for his Christmas card list.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Then it says, "So how big is your collection?" And he says, "Let me see." And then in parentheses it says, "Count for nearly 2 minutes." I'll count the Green Mile originals as one story instead of the 6 separate books. I think that's 108 books. I mean, if you just have the hardbacks for every novel he's written, that gets to be around 60 books or something like that. So yeah, that's. I love that, him counting in the middle of the answer there. That makes me laugh because it just reminds myself of someone's like, how many movies do you have? I mean, I keep track of it in the computer now, but if I had to sit here and count my movies, we'd
be here all day.
Yeah, it'd be more than 2 minutes. But.
Go read what Cody just wrote.
Let's see. Oh, I've fallen way behind on the chat here. Let's see. Get back to where.
Second to last message from
me. I'm just looking at everything I missed. A fan from the start, that's cool. Dreamcatch, that's just released when I started reading Stephen King. FYI, the plant is available as a PDF. I have a copy. Oh, interesting. So it's a matter. So maybe it isn't as secretive. I mean, it's not necessarily cool because it's secret. It's a matter of like just getting your hands on one of.
But it's the actual one is the big thing. Is that's where it starts getting worth money.
Yeah.
But if you want to go read the plant, you definitely can get a PDF of it.
Interesting. And then Jack says, got to get myself on that Christmas card list. Dude, there's bands that just basically say like, hey, pay us hundreds of dollars to be like a preferred person and we'll like sell you tickets an hour before everyone else. Like, like there's a little bit of benefits to it, but it's like literally it comes down to like they're charging you to like for bragging rights that you're the biggest fan. Like, oh, all these bands do this, like, anymore. Like, everyone does it. And then the only other step they do is, like, the cruises, like a band cruise. Like, oh, the Motley Crue cruise, we're going to get a, whatever. Basically, we're going to get paid for you guys to pay out of your nose to go on a cruise where we're going to be on the ship, like.
And we'll have one show on Saturday night.
Yeah, but I look at it as, like, King could get away with that. If King did something where he's like,
God.
I'm going to write something, like, exclusive for a fan club and then charge, like, not that he needs the money or that he would even do that. I think that's probably below him, but I'm just saying there's a market out there, because I think I would sign up if it was, unless it was like way out of my price range. But yeah.
Ryan just posed us a question. I want your answer.
Go on.
Which situation would be worse, Cujo or the long walk?
Oh, well, as my name being Tad, I think Cujo's got to be the answer.
I'd be fucked if it was the long walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being a bigger guy, I would not last very long.
Yeah, I mean, Cujo, I mean, like,
I don't think Cujo would be nearly as threatening as it is now. I mean, obviously, if you transported me into, Tad's mom's body, then we're talking. But me versus a Saint Bernard who's rabid, I'll take my chances.
Yeah,
I'll get out of that car in 10 seconds and kick that dog's ass.
No, you'd go out there and try to pet it. Like, oh, it's a Saint Bernard.
Just because I love Saint Bernard doesn't mean I'm an idiot, sir. But I'm of the mindset. There's a celebrity that has talked about this before. I can't remember where, but he talked about, like, there's not very many animals on Earth that I'm, like, terrified of that I can't survive an attack from.
Yeah.
There's not really a situation where I'm going to come across a tiger and be like, oh, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those instances where, like, oh, the tiger broke out of the zoo. Here, let me get inside. Kind of situations like that. He's like, it's always the same kind of situation. It's like, I honestly believe that I could hold off an animal and survive. I kind of feel that way about a rabid dog. Like, obviously, rabies is scary as shit.
Yeah,
it is.
Okay,
but in modern medicine, like, it's not nearly as bad anymore. So
no, rabies is still kind of dangerous.
It's still kind of dangerous, but I mean, people get bit and they survive. So that's what I'm saying. Is like, it's not one where
if they get treated quick enough, but like once you get to a certain spot, like,
oh yeah, but that's like it's days before it gets to that. It's not a venom. It's not gonna like it's not the fucking spider down in Australia that kills you in 10 minutes.
All right, here, let me just throw a little curveball at you. You got your daughter with you. Now how do you answer the question? Does that change it?
Because if I get if I get out and I get unlucky, she dies. It's that simple.
Yeah, because that would ultimately be the truest equation to the book, right? Because if it's just you, it's easy. It's almost easier.
Yeah, because I could take that chance.
Yeah, but then when you put your kid involved, now it's like there's more involved, and then it is closer to the book. I think that then it's I don't know. I just think that to me, like, the claustrophobia of the car is like, that gets me. I'm not even claustrophobic, but I feel like an element of like, even when I'm like in, I'm trying to think of like a time, like waiting room sometimes, like when I'm stuck in a place that like. That's
where
like
you really don't want to be.
You don't want to be there.
A movie theater is one thing. Waiting for a movie to start, great. I want to be there.
But that's a good example. Movie theater, love movie theaters. Go there all the time. Going to go to one night. But when I was in that 27-hour Marvel marathon,
you were starting to get a little tired.
That theater starts to get smaller.
Yep.
Like, there's just something about, I don't know. Like, and again, I'm not claustrophobic. Like, I can whatever. Like, yeah, if I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a whatever. Like, I'm like elevators. I don't freak out like anything like that. But like if I was stuck in an elevator, there'd be a point where it'd be like, okay, I'm done with this small space. And like a car, like you can't stand up. Like just I don't know. Like even just driving to like Vegas, which for us is like a 6-hour drive. Yeah. There's times where I'm just like, okay, I'm done being in a car. Like I'm done with this.
I'm one of those people that I don't put up with that shit. Like I'll be driving like even down to my in-laws, which is 3 hours away. There'll be times where I'll just pull over. My wife will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I just got out of the car." Like I'm just my butt hurts. My legs hurt. I just need to get out of this car for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that like we got like 4 or 5 stops along the way that it's like, hey, I'm pulling up here. Do I need to get out? No, I'm good. Get it to that second one. It's like, nope. Okay, let's get out and stretch our legs.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And I'm one of those people that I'm not one that's like my dad was when we went on family vacations, we're going to drive from here to here
Make
with
time.
one stop, and that's all.
Yeah.
You better go to the bathroom or else. It's
Yeah.
like, yes, General.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so that's I'd probably say Cujo just because like I don't know, like I'd rather like die walking than like.
But here, okay, so here's the thing though. Do you know the rules of the long walk? Because I think that plays a part of it too. Is that also, you don't know the whole story.
I'm trying to remember the book for Cujo because the movie definitely portrays like you're in the car in the summer too. Like,
yeah, no, it is that way in the book too.
Yeah,
it's hot
and like that.
And even when she'll try to crack the window to try to get air, and that's when the dog will attack.
Yeah,
which obviously freaks her kid out.
Yeah,
he's like what, like 3 or 4?
He's younger. Yeah,
he's really young.
So like me, like not just the car, but also the heat. No,
See, that's the thing.
That's like adding up a bunch of things I'm not into. It's not even the dog. It's just the rest of like what the dog's forcing me into would be stuff that's so undesirable that anything else. Like, yeah, you want to burn me at the stake. You want to, you know what I mean? Like with some of the most undesirable shit. Like, sure, like that. Rather than like the torture of being in like a freaking car in the summer, stuck sitting, stuck. Yeah, just no.
Yeah,
no.
So before you give your final definite answer, let me make sure you understand the rules of the long walk. Is that you have to walk at a certain speed, otherwise you get a strike. On the 3rd strike, you don't get a warning; they'll just pop you. You have soldiers following along with you in a truck that keep track of your speed. If you drop below, guys, correct me in the chat. I think it's 5 miles an hour.
Yeah,
it's not slow, dude. It's not a meander.
No, but
you got to march.
Yeah, but see, still, there's an easy way out too. Just pop me, great. Still better than getting mauled by a dog. Because at some point, I
get out of the car
to make for it, whatever it might be, and that's not necessarily a pleasant.
4 miles. Thank you, Mark. 4 miles an hour.
Not necessarily pleasant. And again, I'm not that I don't think I would like be able to try at the dog, for some sort of fight, but like,
well, it's the age old question of, would you rather suffer through a proper hanging? Because for those of you that don't know, there's 2 ways to be hung. There's the proper way, which is where your neck breaks and you die. And there's the improper way where it's either too short a drop, the noose is positioned incorrectly, or it's not tied correctly, and you strangle to death, which is horrible.
Yeah.
It's the difference between the 2 there. If you had to choose, obviously everyone's going to take the quick and painless death.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying here is, great, you're going to shoot me? Fine, I'll take that versus getting mauled by it. Yeah. So basically what you're saying...
After getting cooked alive in a car...
So what you're saying is that you have no confidence in yourself to survive the situation.
I mean, I'm just assuming it's king related. Your chances are it's not going to go your way. I think that's a safe assumption, right?
That's what we're talking about, Jim. Is if Cujo rips your throat out, you don't have to worry about the rabies.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the rabies that I'd be worried. Yeah, it's more. Yeah, and besides, most likely you're gonna stand up in the car, or stand up to the car element as long as you possibly can. So now you're gonna be getting out when you're not necessarily at your best. You know what I mean? Either mentally, emotionally, you're going to be like tired, exhausted. Like it's just not.
Here's how you set yourself up. Like if this was, I would love to do this. If someone wants to give me $1 million to do this, I would fucking do this in a heartbeat. Set up situations to put real world people into a situation like this that have never read Stephen King, and they're like, okay, this is from a movie and book. You're now stuck in this situation. So they're like, hey, you need to take this car and go drive it over here. Someone who's like down on their luck and looking for a job. It's like, come run an errand for us. And then there's like, the person in the car's like, oh, that dog has rabies. Oh, I better go. And he gets out of the car and he runs around the corner of the house and, oh, you hear him die. And so now that person's stuck in the car and it's like, okay. And then someone comes on the radio and goes, we'll be there to catch you, but it's going to take 2 hours. Okay, so you have to give them the time limit. And then if they get out, they get the prize money. If not, they lose. That kind of thing. You would have died in this movie, book, situation kind of thing.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun to do. But for me, that's where the question would go. For the person who's setting up the situation for me, is there a chance of rescue? Like, don't tell me how long I have to hold out, because I can do that. You say you got to be in the car for 13 hours. Fuck it, dude, I'm there for 13 hours. If I know that I'm getting rescued. But if someone says,
at the end of the tunnel.
But if someone says, there's a chance of rescue, but we're not going to tell you how long it may be. It may be 6 days.
Yeah.
It may be 2 days. It may be 20 minutes. Who knows? It's random.
All right.
That's where all of a sudden it's like, at a certain point, you're absolutely right. I'm going to take my chance with the goddamn dog.
How long do you think you'd hold up at a grocery store?
In a grocery store? We talking The Mist? Fuck you. Fuck you for bringing up that movie and book. Fuck you.
Oh, man. You get a lot of food.
I hate you. That grocery store or just a grocery store? Because I can tell you right now, the very first thing I do is snap that woman's neck. God damn.
Yeah.
You had to bring her up, didn't you?
I try. Whenever I can, I try to get those in that I can slide in.
For those of you that don't know me and Tad very well, Tad likes to poke me and prod me. He's done it several times already in this episode. There's a list that I've made for most hated characters from
in all pop culture,
film,
basically.
TV, books, all that kind of stuff. The woman from The Mist who tries to, the religious woman, for those of you who've seen the film, I've read the short story once. I can't remember honestly if she's actually in it or not. I think she is. But the woman in the what's his name? That does the movie.
Oh, Frank Darabont.
Thank you. Darabont movie. That woman is easily one of my most hated characters in the history of pop culture.
Yeah.
I fucking loathe everything about that woman. And I seriously, if I had the chance, if that character, not the actress, if I had that character standing in front of me, I seriously would consider beating her to death.
No, that's what I was going to say. What about the actor?
Oh, no.
Say like
no,
she was.
no.
I'm just saying, like she was at Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah.
And you end up meeting her. Like, what would you say?
I would say, oh my God, I loved you in The Mist. I hated that character so much. Good job.
Yeah, because that's
how I take. I'm not one of those.
I know you're.
I'm not one of those psychotics
just...
that's like, this person is that actor that played that one person and did that one thing to the guy I like. I hate him. No, but that actress was amazing. That character, seriously, oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Ryan says he didn't like her either. Yeah, I don't think she's a very likable.
Of course you loved her, knowing you.
No, I was just a fan of those people up at the what is it, the facility?
Yeah, Mountain Arrowhead or something.
Yeah,
Arrowhead Project, I think is what it was.
Those guys, they're good cats. They're trying to do the right thing, and you know. We
officially established that the Mist is part of the Dark Tower universe. Like that's opening like we that's opening to Todash Darkness, right?
Yeah. Which means that they're trying to maybe find their way into Midworld. That's why I'm saying they're good people. You know, they're just trying to figure out a way to get
try to do the Crimson King bidding, huh?
I don't know if that's Crimson King bidding.
Yeah, that's what Crimson King wants, is to drop the Dark Tower and cast them all into Outer Todash.
But I don't know if they're trying to get to Todash. I think they're just trying to get over to next door to the old Takora Spirit factory. You know, so I think they're good people trying to get us open up to Roland's world, perhaps. That's all I'm saying. All right, so let's finish up.
We got off a little bit.
Scott's interview here. It says, or the question is, didn't you write a foreword for one of his books? He says, yeah. This press Overlook Connection approached me, writing a new foreword for The Stand because of what a big fan I am, and because Among the Living record is so heavily influenced by that book. So I wrote the foreword for that edition, which was mind blowing. I'd like to think that Stephen King read it, and that I like to think that Stephen King read something that I actually wrote, which is hilarious for like
that's awesome.
A rock star to be like.
I hope that this author read what I wrote.
Yeah, there's just something about it, like seeing like people like this that are like celebrities in their own rights, like geeking out about other ones. And I don't know why. That's just something I always.
Oh, dude, it's seeing. So good. It's so. I can't remember who it was. There was an actor that freaked out when he saw. I think it was LeBron James, the basketball star, like freaked out when he saw him. I'm like, dude, you're in like 17 movies over the last couple years that everyone would die to meet you, and you're freaking out over a basketball play.
Yeah,
and it's just like, Jesus Christ, that's so weird.
Mark says he cheered when Ollie blew her away.
Goddamn right. I don't think I've ever been happier coming from a death of a movie character.
You know, I'm thinking about it. Ollie is Armin Zola.
Yeah.
It's been oh, I don't even know what it's been since I watched that movie. At least 10 years.
Yeah, when I watched
maybe
Captain America,
about 8 years.
When I watched Captain America, I'm like, hey, that's Ollie.
Oh, I've never connected that in my mind. That's never connected. That's.
But you got to realize back then, that's when we weren't watching Marvel movies together. We didn't start watching Marvel movies together until after the first Avengers.
So what do you say after the episode? Want to watch The Mist?
Fuck you. See, the thing is like The Mist isn't that bad. The Mist is one of those ones where it's like,
dude, you get bored.
Oh, I get so goddamn mad. I get so pissed.
You get mad. I mean, I think I'm the only one that ever got you to the spot where you were like pacing in anger, but I think The Mist came pretty close to give it credit.
That fucking prank was so bad.
I've done a lot of pranks on you. Yeah,
that's the worst one you've ever done.
So last up, it says, have you ever met the man? And he says, no, but I hope to someday. It'd be cool just to shake his hand. And obviously, if I could have a conversation with him, it would be even better. I'm sure we could talk about music all day. Even in the world of music, there's no one bigger than him. I've never met Malcolm or Angus Young, but meeting Stephen King would be even bigger for me. Other than breathing and listening to music, reading Stephen King books is one of the constant activities in my life. It predates Anthrax. Which, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, I know Anthrax is a lot bigger in the the 80s and stuff. I don't know when the band was formed, but like if you're talking about seeing Carrie in theaters and then picking up the book like the next day, like yeah, he's been in it probably since he was, I don't know, I can't guess his age, but I guess it was probably closer to his high school days than anything else. So, Ryan in the chat, I like the Roland cameo in The Mist, which was pretty tittillating as a fan in 2007
to see a movie poster.
That was, I'm trying to think, 2007, was that around the time? Yeah, it was about around the time that we got the J.J. Abrams buying the rights to the book. So that was pretty interesting. And there's still part of me, man. Wasn't it Frank that said, he wanted to try the Dark Tower, and Stephen King's like, you've done too much of my stuff. Do other things.
What if?
I mean, he's 3 for 3, right? I mean,
The Mist,
Green Mile, and Shawshank.
Shawshank.
You can't argue Shawshank. I mean, there's people that rank Shawshank as one of the greatest movie of all time. Some people rank it. I don't. It's up there, but it's not number one in my opinion. But there's people that legitimately rank it the greatest film of all time.
When you go look at like lists, like top 50 movies, top 100 movies, top 250 movies, fan voted, editors voted. Yeah, Shawshank's on there somewhere.
Shawshank, Godfather, and Citizen Kane tend to be the ones that are always going to be in your top 5. Almost always, those 3 are at least going to be in there. And yeah, on a number of lists, Shawshank is number 1. So yeah, you can't go wrong. I actually heard a story on that. Interestingly, Darabont did the Dollar Babies when he was in film school and did something, and then that actually opened up the dialogue for him to get the rights for the Shawshank from Stephen King later.
Oh, damn.
And wrote the treatment for it and everything, the script and everything. And apparently the studio offered him fairly big money, somewhere in the realm of like, I think it's speculated to be around 20 million or something for the script, which is pretty big. And he turned it down and got director minimum, or got the writer's minimum in the trade that he would direct it as well as write it.
Oh,
they just wanted to buy it from him. And
have somebody else
direct it, but he took a lot less money, significantly less money.
That just tells you how dedicated Darabont is, and that just makes me, dude, what if?
Yeah, that is the ultimate what if.
Okay, so let's play the game. Aside from Dark Tower, because obviously we know you would like that, you had to pick a Stephen King work for Darabont to give you either a movie or a series treatment. What would you want?
My instant reaction is The Stand, but I'm really happy with
Boone?
I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm so happy with like Boone, and I'm really excited to see what he has for us. I don't know that I can go with that one. See, I'm trying to think what kind of because I feel like Shawshank's the ultimate, and I think Green Mile is very similar. I feel like you'd have to find something like that. Like, so I wouldn't want to like throw him in like It, right? Like I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying I would try to find something closer to his.
Well, what did you think about The Mist though? I mean, that's more horror-esque and everything.
Yeah, no,
like
I thought
he did really good.
No, he did, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like he does good with like the drama, because I feel like even The Mist, like the monsters are secondary to me when I'm watching that. Like that's the human drama is what really struck me with that more than anything, right? Like the last scene and everything. Like that's the heart of the movie versus like the monsters. Like I feel like it's just the two different ways a filmmaker might approach it, right? And I'm not saying that another filmmaker, like every other filmmaker, would have focused on the monsters. I'm just saying that like The Mist, I feel like, has that character core that's very similar to Shawshank and very similar to Green Mile.
Okay.
So I feel like you'd have to find a character that's really, even if it's in a crazy circumstances, you got to find a character that's got like that core that in my opinion, I mean, maybe I don't want to be like the one that's like typecasting, quote unquote, for like, but that's what I'd probably try to look for, and I'm like kind of sifting through in my head to try to think what it would be. But anyway, the problem is now is that everything is being made.
I know,
so,
right? Imagine what Darabont would have done with 11/22/63.
Yeah, that's probably the one that comes to mind. Because like for instance, like The Outsider came to mind. I don't know that The Outsider would. It doesn't feel as right to me.
Yeah.
Like there's just something about that feels more like get someone else to do that. That one's like kind of just the style of it is whatever. But like like I think the heart in 11/22/63. I think that would be one that I would be interested in him maybe doing as like the limited series.
Yeah.
I think that would be. Now, of course, all those Walking Dead people would probably show up because he casts all the same people.
I'd be okay with that.
Although the old man just died not too long ago.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, like couple less than a year ago. He was in the car in The Mist, and he was in Walking Dead. He died in The Walking Dead like early on, right?
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now.
I don't remember the actor. I went to the wrong old guy, but yeah, when she said the car, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he dies. Season 1 or season 2 of Walking Dead.
Yeah, because I think he forced their hand. I think he said, "Kill my character because I'm done." Because when they fired Darabont off The Walking Dead,
Darabont left after season 2.
Yeah. So, but the actor just passed away not too long ago. But yeah, you'd still get like when you watch The Mist now, if you watch The Walking Dead, it'll be like, holy shit, look at all these people that I know from The Walking Dead. Like, if you haven't watched it,
Andrea, the character Andrea's in.
If you haven't watched it since 2007 when it came out, it would be quite the revelation to go back and watch it now.
I think Darabont would make a kick-ass writer/director for Firestarter.
Yeah,
because it's the human element is the big thing there. It's like the shop thinks of her as a weapon and basically property and everything. And that's how they want to treat her.
Yeah,
and it's the dad's trying to keep his daughter free kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great story for Darabont to do. I know that Firestarter's in the works already.
Yeah.
But still, we're playing a what if.
And Jim asks, any news on the Talisman? I haven't heard anything on it recently. But see, that's one that...
Was that Spielberg?
No, he
has that?
He's had it for almost 30 years now, the rights to it, I think, or something crazy like that. But I don't know. I can't even remember where we're at on that one in terms of like, when's the last time we talked about that? I think we did.
Last year. End of last year, I think we did. Because I thought you said that something was happening with it.
Yeah, because I feel like I think it's still under Spielberg's like company, but I feel like like they're getting other filmmakers involved. Yeah, because Josh Boone is writing it. Or did write it, but I haven't heard any updates recently on it, so I'm not sure where it sits on that. But
yeah, because when that news broke last year, because what time of year last year does it say? Like April.
I already closed it out, but
yeah, something like that. Because that's where it was like that's right after that is where someone suggested that I read The Talisman and Black House, and I did.
Yeah,
I liked him. I liked him a lot.
Yeah. Spielberg wants Stephen King's Talisman to become a movie, April 2018. So yeah, we're talking a little less than a year ago. Spielberg might finally adapt Stephen King. So Spielberg's still involved, but I think like a lot of the articles, if I remember covering them when we covered on the show, Spielberg's not going to direct.
No.
Like it's going to be part of his production company and stuff. He'll be probably producing or executive producing, but he's not going to be behind the lens, as it were.
Right.
So, yeah, I haven't heard any updates. I mean, I don't even know I wonder if the, script got done by Boone or not, because at the time remember Boone was going to be doing the revival before The Stand.
Didn't he do the revival?
Did he?
It came out on Hulu.
Oh yeah, that's right.
With Aaron Paul.
What does it? Yeah, I lost track.
I never got a chance to watch it, but because that was back when I was like, do I need Hulu? Do I not need Hulu?
Yeah.
Last year around that time was a really rough time for me because it was right after I lost my job and everything. So that's where I was like, I gotta cut back. I gotta make sure keep the bare minimums and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, you know what? Do I need Hulu? Do I not need Hulu? Now I got Hulu. I actually should go back and watch that because that is Boone and my boy.
Yeah,
my boy.
Yeah, indeed,
Eddie.
Okay, so
sorry, we keep getting off on this.
No, that's kind of what I guess that's kind of what our show is.
That's how we do
it. So now that's the end of that one. So now to the odds and ends, or I guess technically, I have this out of order. So let me just do the odds and ends real quick, and then we'll jump into the discussion / and did rename the discussion section. We'll get to that in just one second. The only couple things I have for odds and ends, Andrew Bernstein, who directed the Amazon Jack Ryan series, is set to direct The Outsider for HBO. Jason Bateman is directing the first 2 episodes. We've already talked about that. But it sounds like Andrew Bernstein is doing the rest of the series. I don't know where your fandoms lie if you're listening, but if you're at all inclined towards Jack Ryan, watch that show on Amazon.
For sure.
It is so good. And yeah, so he's going to be directing. So that kind of fills out the rest of what we're talking about behind the scenes for The Outsider, which is interesting, and for HBO, which is still exciting because has HBO gotten the King game in the new
it's their first
golden age?
They don't have any.
Or yeah,
ever.
I mean, they haven't really been doing a lot of original. I mean, they kind of have, but kind of have it in terms of like they do a lot of shows and TV. They don't do a lot of like. They're newer in the realm of like doing movies, and
they're doing a lot of
that are like more like this. Like
they're doing a lot of adaptations.
Yeah,
over the last. I mean, look at their golden era of HBO, which for me, maybe this is just because that's where I started watching some of their stuff. Was Band of Brothers.
Yeah, 2001. Yeah,
you see Band of Brothers
right around the turn of the century is when they were doing a lot. They were doing like
Sopranos,
like in the late 90s, and you had like Oz and the Sopranos, which are the ones that kind of changed television in a lot of ways for those shows.
But then like Band of Brothers book. And then you have the Pacific, which is not necessarily a book, but kind of a spin-off of a book. Yeah. Sort of thing. And then you're getting, I mean, obviously the huge one that's, concluding here in a month or so. Game of Thrones. Yeah. Is a huge one for them and then they have The Outsider, and there's a couple others that I had in my head, and they just went whoosh, and they're gone now. Yeah,
they got a lot. They got a lot they got going right now. They just fired their top guy at HBO.
He walked away, is what I read.
He's getting forced out, which is interesting because he's been around for a long time.
Did you see?
Makes me wonder what might change. I think it's part of a merger of some kind. But yeah, it's kind of weird.
No, that's what the headline that I wrote. Because I will say that I read the headline. I didn't even want to go in and read the article. The guy walked away from HBO because he doesn't like the idea of anything with AT&T.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so last odds and ends we have before we jump over to the other discussion is the trailer dropped not long ago for the documentary on the making of the original It miniseries. Did you see that?
I saw that. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but it's
I posted on my personal social media, which is where I figure you may have seen it. It's like a 6-minute extended look.
Okay.
And dude, it looks incredible. It looks like just because I think it's like because like it's weird because even after the new movie. I still feel there's like an element of like reverence in my mind and heart for the original.
Yeah.
And this looks to have everyone involved. I mean, seeing some of these people that were kids and now as adults being interviewed. Tim Curry is interviewed, which is interesting because like he kind of disappeared after his stroke, but it looks like he's kind of making his way back into into stuff.
He came to Salt Lake's FanX last year.
The Salt Lake Comic Con. He showed up. Yeah, which was
it's not allowed to be called Salt Lake Comic Con. Tad, they lost that.
Did you see they changed their name to Salt Lake Comic Convention?
Did they really?
They did. That's what I've been saying for 2 years. I'm like, just call it Comic Convention. Everyone's just going to call it Comic Con to shorten it. And now you're not legally calling it. Yeah, whatever. That's it. So I'm glad they're finally doing that. But no, I highly recommend it. I'm going to put it in the show notes, the trailer itself. It's like a 6-minute, somewhat long video, and it kind of gives you kind of a taste of what this is going to look like. I'm really excited for it because, I mean, like, we get these retrospectives on a lot of different things. Why not one of the most iconic King works?
Yeah.
You're talking, there's some other ones, obviously, Shawshank, Shining, there's some big ones. But, like, I think
it was revolutionary.
I think
man.
it ranks right in there, man. That influenced and scarred a generation of people from clowns. I honestly wonder if that adaptation hadn't happened and It in 2017 was the first It adaptation ever. I highly doubt you'd have as many people scared of clowns.
No,
I really feel like that Tim Curry performance is what really put gas on that fire.
I picture when you say Tim Curry performance, I picture the scene in the bathroom where he does the little leaning on his arm.
Yeah. Speaking of bathroom, there was a little headline made. Jessica Chastain, this isn't even on my odds and ends, but it actually fits in here. I forgot about it, but I'm glad you mentioned it. Jessica Chastain was on whatever talk show. They're all the same anyway, except for Conan. And she said that she filmed a scene in It Chapter 2 that she was told is the bloodiest in film history.
Really?
So
over The Shining with the elevator.
Yeah, and the Freddy Krueger
with Johnny
Geyser
Depp's.
that was up there as well.
What is the bloodiest history?
Nothing comes to mind book wise for the adult.
I know.
What?
She relives that in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm thinking is like maybe just a kind of like a reliving of the bathroom, but I don't remember that in the book. I guess
no, in the book, what she does is she goes back to her father, and there's the old woman there. But if you look at the movie, had it where the blood burst on the girl, the younger version of Bev.
Yeah,
and they cleaned it up.
Yeah, so but that was nowhere near the kind of blood they're going to need for. Yeah, think about the geyser that was in Freddy. That was, I know at one point that held the record. That's a geyser of blood.
It was Freddy, and then it got transitioned to The Shining, right, with the elevator.
I'm not sure
because that was Kubrick went out on record and said that. I remember this saying that they had one take. That's why there's so many different camera angles.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm sure that was a one taker because that's a huge set and everything.
Yeah,
but like I don't know. It'd be interesting.
It's what is the definition of fake blood at that point? Because it's like is it something that's supposed to represent blood counts as fake blood? Because then you get stuff like the shower scene in Hitchcock Psycho. They used corn syrup.
Yeah,
right?
No, it would still count.
So
as
it would
blood.
still count as fake blood,
yeah,
right? But that's where I'm wondering, like, because Kubrick didn't use the normal fake blood because it was way too runny.
Yeah,
it wasn't like the thick blood consistency like in Freddy.
Yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's where it was like. What constitutes fake blood?
But you think bathroom is the?
That's got to be that. That's got to be it. If it's her, it's got to be that scene.
Yeah, and then somebody sleuthed and found some post that she did on Instagram where she was hugging the director, and she looked. She didn't look very like caked completely, but she certainly had blood all over her arms and stuff, to where it was probably the day they filmed that, most likely.
Jim has a request for your Palaver with Tad show.
What's that?
He wants to know, can you guys do a Game of Thrones episode on Palaver with
Tad? Yeah, absolutely. That's something that most likely. I mean, I just did my whole rewatch in like a month and a half. I was like, I could start in January. That'll get me up to the premiere of the new.
And he got sick.
Yeah, then I got sick and like having like a week off of work, being sick. Like, yeah, I got through that in like less than a month. Yeah, I definitely at some point talk about Game of Thrones because I've been a pretty big fan of it. So certainly something that will come up. But yeah, I'll definitely have to write them down. Back to the Future, Game of Thrones, got some good ideas. I have some ideas as well. There's a lot of fun. I mean, it's one of those things like for that one, it's like hard to like come up with ideas a little bit just because there's so much to talk about.
Well, I mean, let's talk about this for a second. I mean, like you got like 10 movies sitting here on your desk that you've accumulated since the last episode or the last couple episodes. And then there's over 1,000 over here on your wall, and that's just movies. Let's not talk about box sets. Let's not talk about TV. Let's not talk about comic books. Let's not talk about music. I mean, that's the nice thing about Palaver with Tad is that many doors,
unlimited topics.
Many doors are open to you, sir.
Indeed. So let's jump on over to the it's gonna, looking at the time, it's probably gonna be our last segment. I was hoping to get in some emails, but
sorry,
the way this has gotten, it's all right. But we've had the discussion section we've been bringing back this year, but I decided, why are we calling it discussion section?
It's Palaver.
It should be the Palaver section.
I like it. I like the picture.
Yeah. It was. I was really trying to find like an animation of just the quartet around a campfire, and because that's an image in my mind that's very stark, because I feel like you get enough of those scenes that like I have an image in my mind that I see, and it was one of those ones I swore that there was an actual animation because that's how clear it was in my mind, and I searched for like an hour and a half and I couldn't find. I'm like, this must just be completely in my memory because there's nothing for the quartet. The only one I found that was like it got brought up somewhere. I don't remember if it was our Twitter or something, but it was on the four-wheeler with all of them together, all
celebrating
happy.
right before.
Right before, exactly. It's like I almost wanted that. I'm like, I almost want to put that on there just to get Peter's reaction because, like, shortly after,
son of a bitch.
But there's no like image I can find anywhere of just like them around a campfire.
I know exactly what you're thinking of. It's book 4 when Roland starts telling his tale on the side of the highway.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a few different times.
There should be an image of that.
Yeah, apparently there's not. So, and I mean, this is better anyway because it's got Flag in it. So,
God,
I mean,
I think I need a shower now just looking at that.
Okay, so in our last book club, we had an interesting bit I wanted to bring up. Due to can't really talk about it in the book club.
Yeah.
First, the excerpt. Here's the just straight from the book. Then had come the night TWA TriStar crash at Idlewild, which I don't know if people aren't as privy to history as much. Idlewild is JFK. It was named that in December of '63, only less than a month after JFK was killed. So Idlewild, they're also like in, there's a few movies that mention it too, but I always wonder that when I hear that, I'm like, I wonder if people realize that's like JFK, that's still an airport exists, or if people just assume it's like some old one that got replaced at some point. But
I thought JFK was still an airport today.
No, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Idlewild is what it was pre-63, before the assassination. And then in December, like less than a month after he was assassinated, New York, to attribute him, renamed Idlewild to JFK International.
Okay. Cool. I'm not stupid then.
Going on with the rest of the thing here, so 65 people on board, 60 of them from what Julio Estevez referred to as DRT, dead right there, and 3 of the remaining 5 looking like something you might scrape out of the bottom of a coal furnace, except what you scrape out of the bottom of a coal furnace didn't moan and shriek and beg for someone to give them morphine or kill them, did they? So that's the bit I had. So, while reading that, I thought to myself, look this up.
Yeah.
So did some research.
Please tell me this isn't a real plane crash.
No, the closest I could find, and it was 58, 59, when I'm
58.
trying to remember. It's in the book. So and he's talking about previous, so who knows, that could open you up to being anywhere probably in the last year or so. Call it 57, 56.
Yeah.
In that pocket somewhere would have to be if this was a real thing. But I looked everywhere. I just basically searched Idlewild airplane crashes and just tried to do some research. The closest was one in 63. There was a plane that was taking off, American Airlines, as a matter of fact. And as it was taking off, it ended up flipping 90 degrees and then just kind of plummeting into the water and killed like 70-something people. So wrong company, didn't really crash the same way, way off on the timeline. So I'm like, this doesn't exist. So the question I have is, let's see, I think, yeah. So if there's 2 options. This is either just artistic license, which we know King loves and enjoys.
Yep.
Or does it guarantee that Susanna is not from our world? Because I've always just like, I guess I always assumed all of them are, and then I slowly would remove it if something came up that disqualified them. Does that make sense? Like that's kind of like I've told you with my villains, I always assume they're flag, and then like as things come up that like prove he's not, I'm like, okay, he's not now.
Okay,
but I assume that everyone is, because it's like it's King. And with this, I just assume all of them are from Keystone Earth until they're proven otherwise.
Yeah, I thought there was something else with Susanna that proved that she wasn't from Keystone. I can't remember what it was, but it.
Yeah, so I just I don't know what do you like. In terms of like even just with this, would you use it as proof that she's not, like if you're going to build a case that she's not from our world, would you use that as that, or would you just write it off as no, this is just King just being an artist?
Honestly, I'd put that down as artistic talent if it's just a plane crash. If it was him changing 9/11, yeah, she's not from our world. 9/11 didn't happen in her world. Yeah, that's where I'd say major event.
But there's real events in the Dark Tower though, right?
Right. No, there is. But when you look at it, it's always a more major event than a plane crash. I'm not saying that a plane crash obviously isn't a tragedy and a serious event, but I'm saying one like this where it's just like, King just made up a plane crash to suit what he had. I mean, obviously, from what you found, there wasn't one.
Yeah.
But in order for the sake of the story, there had to be one. That's what I think it is. I think when you look at something like Eddie having Co-op City flipped is more a direct result.
But with that, didn't at some point we get revealed that was basically a mistake on his part?
That was just King making an error, and then he just wrote it in.
Retconned it. Yeah. So I'm just looking at it from our perspective, do we retcon that to show for sure that she's not from our world based on this?
I honestly thought that we had something more concrete for her that we did.
So I will say, I know Chris, obviously from Australia, has done some extensive research. I did find something from him. Hopefully he's cool with us using his charting the tower stuff. But he has a thing written up on her where she comes from, and he says Let's see. It's not always easiest, or not always easy or obvious to tell. I initially thought she must come from a different world to Eddie and Jake because and then in parentheses, faulty as it turns out, memory told me that Susanna told Eddie that Co-op City in her was in the Bronx, and in the meantime, the tech corporation is founded with Susanna's beloved Moses Carver in Keystone World. So I guess that is an interesting thing too, because maybe that's where I kind of almost reinforced the thing that she's from Keystone,
because she would have been missing.
Yeah, so that we'll come back to that. I think that's an interesting part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And then it says, but then what about Jack Mort? Jax interacts with Susanna on at least 2 occasions that we know of, but also with Jake. So is Susanna from Eddie and Jake's world too? It all starts to become very confusing. The key clue to points directly to Susanna's world being different from ours is that she is pushed in front of the A train at Christopher Street Station. It was pointed out to me on an Awesome Dark Tower Facebook group that New York's A train does not pass through Christopher Street Station, at least not in our world. Not in the Keystone world. In book 2, we hear this when Roland has possession of Jack Mort's body. And then there's a quote, Mort's right hand moved the lever by the wheel again and then rolled towards the Christopher Street Station, where the fabled A train had cut off the legs of a woman named Odetta Holmes some 3 years before. But to add some confusion, in book 6, we have a scene where Susanna is trapped in her Dogan and begins to have a savage dreams filled with savage news. And this version of herself, with the voice of Detta Walker, comes to her with a dream and says about her legs, they're going to cut off by the A train, that fabled A train. A man named Jack Mort pushed you off that platform in the Christopher Street Station. And she replies, the A train doesn't stop there, and it has never stopped there. So,
oh, damn.
Yeah. So, and then he says, he goes on. I'll link to the what he has written up here. But I think that Chris, with all of his work he's put in, is probably one of the experts on, realities and stuff. With what's where. But I feel like with some of that, it would add in. But I think so. Here's the question with the Jack Mort and even even the Jack Mort. Do you think that it's probable that Jack Mort exists in the multiple realities, right? Like we see there's multiple Eddies and stuff. Yeah. Would Jack Mort have the same predispositions towards things to where the Jack Mort that pushed Jake is 100% different than the Jack Mort that pushed Susanna? I mean, they're the same. They're twinners.
Is it the same one?
But are they different ones where, like,
I probably think they're different ones.
He's predisposed, or no matter what twinner it is, maybe not all of them. Maybe there's millions of them and only a few. But the ones that interact with our characters, even though they're not the same, are both precluded to harming people, or killing people.
Well, we already got proof that no two are exactly the same. I mean, look at the 2 Eddies. One's a heroin addict, one's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that already shows a vastly different type of character.
Yeah.
There. The Eddie that in book 7 that Susanna runs into with Jake, Jake's his brother.
Yeah.
Not Henry.
Yeah.
Eddie's not a stoner. Eddie in the books is.
Yeah.
In Roland's Quartet is a stoner.
Yeah.
So that's where I say, are majority of Mort's pushers and harmers and villains and stuff like that?
I would assume yes.
I would assume yes. The majority,
but
of
it doesn't mean there aren't
also
some that are nice and
right. It also
people.
Goes along the lines that is every single Eddie Dean or Eddie whatever.
Yeah.
Because maybe he's not called Eddie in some. Maybe he goes by Ed in a couple.
Yeah.
Or Edward.
Yeah.
Maybe that Eddie. There's a couple out there that are fucking psychopaths.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Could be.
I think that's one thing that you see with Susanna is that she not only has one of those from the multiverse, she has Detta as well, which is one of the extremes of her across the multiverse. I think that's what makes her so unique. So that's where it kind of would be interesting is if each one of the characters has a multiple personality disorder like Susanna. So there's an Eddie out there who's a complete, utter fucktard, but also the nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
And he has a multiple personality disorder. Imagine that. But so I want to bring up the chat here because I have to talk about this. Ryan, Eddie does reside in Keystone Earth. Or one very close to it, because we established that when we were reading the book club, and I wanted to bring this up too, and I'm glad you brought this up. He mentions The Shining as a movie. If The Shining is a movie in Eddie's world, that means King's an author and has written that and it's been adapted into a film.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't mean he's in Keystone. I just think that, like...
It's obviously really close, though.
Yeah.
Like, he has to either be in Keystone or very close.
Just
to
like we see King Books, right, in the bookstore, right? Or mentions King Books.
Right.
But Ryan also above says, I thought none of the content was born in Keystone because King resides in the Keystone, which that makes sense too. But I don't know. I guess
because if King resides in the Keystone, and that's the only place where he writes, then how can Eddie know about The Shining?
Well, maybe not writes, but I would say that the only one that writes the Dark Tower in that way that creates reality.
In Eddie's world, King exists and writes novels, The Shining.
Yeah, he just never wrote the Dark Tower.
But he never wrote the Dark Tower. Yeah. Oh, okay. I never thought about
that. That's what I would interpret. Like, and maybe he's King that doesn't even write a majority of his books. Maybe it's a King that only wrote 5 books.
Maybe he only The Shining is one of them. Maybe he only wrote The Shining and that's it.
Yeah,
and then he got hit by a car.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, definitely. That's how I've interpreted it in my mind. I guess that's the way I've always interpreted it. Well, yeah, I guess Ryan just said, I always thought that maybe The Shining was only a movie in 80s, which is a very distinct possibility too, right?
Kubrick, I have an idea for a movie. Yeah, I don't know why, but it...
I mean,
here's Johnny.
He didn't use the book very much anyway, let's be honest. And then Mark mentions her grandpa runs the Tech Corp, which is a Keystone. So I think that's the larger and harder question in my mind, but I think I have like something that way my mind works it out, and I want to see what you think. So then we get to Moses, right, and Susanna, because that's the hardest one. I feel like a lot of these others are easy to deal with. Like, you've got Jake, you've got Eddie, they're from different ones. Jack Mort exists across the board, just like we've seen. We see multiple Eddies in the course of the books. I mean, dude, even like Jake and Eddie following and running into, or they're following the other Jake that sees Eddie, right? Or like inadvertently, like they cross paths or something. Or because remember Eddie said something like whatever, but like in my,
they see Jake going into the bookstore, not following Eddie.
Or no, yeah,
that Jake follows Eddie later on.
Yeah,
that this Jake follows.
Yeah. So, but in my mind, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the same Eddies, even though they're doing the same things, because there may be a thing that those wheres and whens are so close together that
there's overlap.
Yeah, that like the Eddie happened to be doing the exact same thing with the exact same thoughts and the exact same experiences. So even there, I've like all of this feels fine to me, even though it looks like a bowl of spaghetti noodles.
But it is supposed to be that way. That's the thing.
Exactly. That's the way a multiverse should be. But when you get into this stuff with Moses Carver and the
Tech
Corporation being in Keystone. Now here's what I would say. In my mind, maybe this is stretching, but it works for me, and I don't know if it would work for everyone. But Susanna, I guess to assume that there is a potential that the people in the books can exist in Keystone, I think that's something that I would just assume anyway. It's possible for someone that is in these books to exist in Keystone as we see it. Not saying they exist in real life. I'm just saying that they exist in Keystone of the books, right? Mm-hmm. Like, not that they have to, not that they all do, but that they might, right? Like, there might be a Susanna Dean or Susanna Holmes, yeah, Dean. Like, so what about the possibility that Susanna, the rough time period in the 60s, maybe was kidnapped, whatever, and right around the same time, to where now it's crossing streams and Susanna is kind of helping them engage with someone that lost their Susanna, but it's not her. You know what I mean?
It's very well could be.
And that's how you cross the streams into getting to where a Keystone Earth Moses knows about Susanna, misses Susanna, because anything could have happened. I mean, dude, this is the 60s. You know, she's a very engaged black woman,
right?
Like, things can happen, man. I mean, not to mention just random things, like, right, like there's murderers, like whatever, or it could just be that she went to like the wrong place and got something let me
propose this hypothetical as well. What if there is no Susanna in this where and when? What if the Holmeses never had a daughter? Well, then who would get the fortune?
But no, but I'm trying to remember. It's been a little bit, but they basically use like knowledge of her for him to like open up to them.
You're talking about Aaron, Deepno, and
yeah, I'm trying to remember all the details now. But
what's the other guy's name? John Carver, Havener, the main guy.
Yeah, Eddie, Moses, like her old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. They do take information and give it to those two. He says, he gives it to John, and John goes and gets Aaron, and Aaron and him and Moses start the Tech Corporation.
Yeah.
It's those three. Yeah, that's right.
So that's where I'm just like, in my mind, it could be that a Susanna existed, you know, whether she even had multiple personality, okay, who knows? But she did exist in the Keystone. Something could have happened to her. It was unsolved. It wasn't like the thing where they find her body, but she just, whatever, maybe she got killed and never discovered, you know. So then the Susanna that disappeared in the one that we see is able to engage with that person because, again, they're close enough together, right, that it's like, it's close enough to Keystone that it's like, hey, you know, your granddaughter that, you know, went missing back here, yeah, she's, you know, we're working with her type thing. That, I guess that's how I've always done it. I don't know if anyone feels it like that's too much of a stretch or whatever, but I guess that's how I, in my mind, kind of,
you know what, I
finagle the things to, like, in my mind, to work, I guess. You know what I that's my disposition.
You know what I like to think of? Now that you've opened my eyes to this, I like to think that Susanna, Eddie, and Jake, the three for the quartet, I think that the Crimson King had those three killed. Right outright. Bodies never found. I bet you if you went and looked at the Dean household, the sister would be alive and Eddie would have been that missing child that no one ever found. Same with Jake throughout the ages, because then those Keystone ones would have made Roland's quest way too easy because they're Keystone, you know, they're those ones, you know, that kind of thing. So they took out the Keystone ones just whoosh, like that.
Yeah.
Because then that opens up the door for what you're saying is that then, okay, when Papa Holmes is addressed,
which comes into the whole thing, maybe not even the Crimson King, maybe it's even Flag, right?
Flag.
Because we've talked about him being knowledgeable of the loop and, you know, what might he do, you know, and if he can cross over into Keystone, you know, would he not, take out people he knows, you know, and we've debated over the years on the show whether does each cycle, is it always the same? Is it always Eddie and Susanna and Jake, or is there times that, like, we know they're going to be similar, right? Because of Cuthbert and Eddie, but, like, so we know they're going to be spiritually linked, but they may not always be the same people, right? There may be a time that it's just like 100% different. Like, it may just be completely different makeup of a quartet, even though they're very like, we might recognize aspects of them.
Which is what made the movie such a fascinating prospect, because if it was just another turnaround and go, we talked about this in the shows leading up to the movie, is that, okay, well, how are you going to do Susanna? You're going to put her in a wheelchair and crop out the legs of the actress who's going to play her, you know? Or are we just going to do it where she went to go get pushed in front of the A train and that woman saved her before she could get hit?
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
it's very possible.
I think we knew then, and obviously what we've seen now. I don't think book fans would be open to that. They would be very hostile in general. Not everyone, but I think a lot of people would be hostile because it's changing things. I mean, even looking at like some of the Pet Sematary stuff, we talked about the change from the trailer.
Right.
You know, there's some people that aren't looking too kind on that, and like, but I look at it like with this is like with Dark Towers. There's such an unlimited amount of possibilities that, like,
because the multiverse is really where the doors, pun intended, are open. Is that, you know, hey, we may get a Roland that's black. We may get a Jake that's 17 instead of 14.
Yeah.
We may get an Eddie who was never addicted to heroin and is an upstanding Bible salesman, you know?
Yeah.
We have endless possibilities, and that's where, for me, my mind's open for that.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, I don't have a problem with that. Now, when you start getting into stuff like book 4, I'm going to want a little bit more true to the source material.
Because that's like foundational stuff, right?
Right.
Like
but if someone's going to go make me an adaptation of the novels, great. That's fantastic. I would still prefer another cycle instead of the books.
Yeah. Also, with book 4, it's outside of the loop.
It is outside of the loop.
So, therefore, that should not change.
Sure, it's outside of the loop except for the horn. I mean, the horn still has not been explained for the loop.
I think that's just, I really think it's divine intervention, man. I think that's Gan throwing rolling
Which
bone.
makes me wonder, how far can that go? What's that extension? How far back can they divine intervention something?
I mean, ultimately, right, if it's divine, I don't think there is a limit, but I think there's an element of, like, not tampering. Kind of like, you know, in Star Trek, they have, like, the prime directive, like, you can't fuck with things too much, even though they always fuck with things at least a little bit when they're not supposed to.
Thanks, Kirk and Picard.
But, like, I feel like there's probably an element of that. I don't know, but that obviously gets into a larger discussion. But I just feel that, like, as we hit on that with the book club, and even here through Chris in Australia with his thing, which I'll link to, you know, he makes a good case with some points here of, like, why Susanna is not from Keystone and not from the same world as Jake or Eddie. They're all from different
I mean,
realities.
That A train alone should be fact enough to show that.
But I think this, if nothing else, for Chris, this would solidify that in a lot of ways. In my mind, it's like easier just to go, okay, King's just making shit up, or in this context of the Dark Tower to go, no, this is a different reality. Like, I know that's can be seen as somewhat of a cop-out, but if we're going to do it for Co-op City, why not do it for the same thing here? Is just go,
right?
No, yeah, it's a multiverse, and in Susanna's world, this plane crash happened, and like here and in our reality, there's some that are close, about 5 years off, different airline, and 10 more people dead, but very similar in a lot of other ways. Like, again, not the like Takuro Spirit versus Toyota or Nissan, whoever it might be. Like, they're not entirely different. They're just not exactly. They're not exactly
Kansas City Royals versus Kansas City Monarchs.
Yeah, I mean it's
that's the right city, just the wrong name.
Yeah, and Nozzla. Yeah, indeed. Oh man, this kind of stuff. I hope this isn't like boring to people that are listening, because this kind of shit just is fascinating to me. As a kid that grew up on sci-fi and that kind of stuff, like this shit just absolutely is fascinating to me. And parsing it all out is a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm trying to, let me see. Again, we ended up going so long on all these different discussions and tangents that I think we're in a spot where I don't really want to die, because we're in a spot where I have some really good emails, but they're like a little bit longer,
lengthier,
and like not even just they're long, but they're also heavy with like a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, they're meaty. Exactly. That's a great way to say it. And I really don't want to like, I don't want to shortchange them. And we don't even have a ton of emails. We just have a few really good ones. So I'm gonna save those, because this is I don't know. I think this has been a good one in terms of like with all the discussion that we've had. And I really like the return of like the element of like discussions, as we're now calling it, the Palaver section. Of the thing. But yeah,
what I love most about the Palaver section? What? No stupid jingle.
Not yet. One of these days you'll be off your guard and you'll jingle it up.
I don't think so.
You'll jingle it up. Oh man, yeah. This Jim from Rhode Island says this stuff is blowing my mind. Yeah, this stuff it fascinates me. I love it. I love like thinking about it, talking about it. But it does for me too. It blows my mind, because it's just like it's layered. Like this series is so layered. Like like this isn't a series where you're just like, because there's stuff you read out there where it's just so, I don't want to say shallow, because that seems really critical. But there is stuff you read that is shallow. It's stuff that once you read it, you're never going to go back and read it again.
No.
The characters aren't compelling enough. The story wasn't deep enough. There wasn't enough layers to the story. There wasn't enough like to really chew on, that you're just like, okay, cool. Yeah, I read it. That's enough.
Time to go on.
With this though, we're like, like I don't even know where my count is. I think I'm close to a dozen. I'm about to start it again. And then to be able to do this podcast and know that like we'll both be dead before we completely run out of shit to talk about with this, for all reality's sake, like, especially the rate that we go, like, there's always going to be stuff to talk about with this. And that's what I love is about this series.
I picture right now is people picturing me and you as that meme with us trying to figure out the timelines
the guy with
multiverse, the strings behind him. But me right now trying to figure out the Dark Tower multiverse.
I am going to create that meme and it'll be the cover for this episode. That is going to happen. Because it's so true. Oh,
just put Peter and Tad trying to figure out the Dark Tower multiverse.
Yeah,
or different levels of the tower.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I'm glad to have this section back for sure. And yeah, we didn't even really talk about a whole lot of non-Dark Tower stuff. It was mostly tower related in this episode,
except for that really good question from Ryan: Long Walk or Cujo? That's that should be an ongoing section, guys. You want to submit some more? Which situation would you like to be in from the Stephen King multiverses?
Yeah. We just get like one of those spinners, two of them.
No, do the wheel. All right, you're a kid in it, or you have to survive the plague in the stand. You are immune though.
Yeah, I think if you're immune, man, you have to go to the stand no matter what. That's always going to win.
It's just because you want to go to Vegas and meet Flag. That's the only reason you're saying that. Take Flag out of the stand. Let's say it's just the plague.
Well, there's no fun in that.
See, I knew it.
There's no fun in that. What the hell's the point then? Yeah, I mean, it's my life for him, right?
You're a terrible person.
All right, so yeah, that's I think we'll wrap that up in this episode. Let me hit the outro stuff real quick. If you want to subscribe to us, you can do it on iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. Find the show notes with some of the things I mentioned, the articles, as well as what did I say? I'll have Chris's link. I have a couple things. I have
Anthrax interview.
The Anthrax stuff. Yeah, we have a number of things that we've mentioned this episode. That'll all be on the show notes. So find that at darktowerpalaver.com. And if you want to engage with us, don't. I know some of these episodes run long and we end up not having time for emails. Don't let that stop people from sending emails because I don't know. I feel like at times people feel like there's like too many or whatever, and then they don't email.
Oh no, don't stop.
Yeah, definitely feel free to email. We've thrown out some questions over the last couple episodes. And
I almost started singing right there. Not doing it.
Yeah. One of these days you will, sir.
Nope.
One of these days.
Nope. I learned my lesson, sir. You're recording me. I learned my lesson.
One of these days you'll make a mistake. We'll have shots before we record, and then you'll make a mistake.
Oh hell no!
We'll loosen you up.
Oh hell no! You're never getting drunk, Peter, on this podcast.
Loosen you up a little. Not even drunk.
You're not even getting tipsy, Peter, on this podcast. Not a chance in hell.
Just grease the gears a little bit. See what happens. We'll be singing karaoke before the episode's over.
My lips are sealed.
All right. You want to let everyone know how to engage with the show?
Yeah, I'll do that though. So if you want to email us, you can do it at darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. Give us a follow on Twitter. It's at darktowerpod. That's at darktowerpod. We stream our roundtables live on youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. Book clubs too. However, the book clubs don't stay up like the roundtables do due to the copyright issues on the sound clips.
Indeed. Yeah, so that is it for this episode, and we'll be back next time for a book club, as we are probably going to start getting into what's going to happen now that
Susanna's there.
Odetta is on the other side of the door.
Odetta.
Well, we haven't seen Odetta yet,
right.
But we'll see what happens there. I mean, we all know we're listening to this episode, but it's gonna get interesting, I think. All right, so we'll see you guys next time. And as we say, as we always do, long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
All right, everyone in the chat, thank you guys for joining us.
Great episode, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Glad you guys are all here to listen and to engage. It always definitely makes it a lot of fun. And when I say engage, of course, not gauge, just engage. I just, in my mind, that registered like I was saying engage. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. It was a lot of fun. Definitely good group. We have more in here than we usually have. I don't mind whether we have one or multiple. I don't care. It's good to have you guys here. And we'll be back next time for book clubs. So
woo!
See you guys.
Bye, guys.